Chapter 18 Ning Qingshue's Plight. Chapter 18 Ning Qingshue's plight, although it was also a medium-sized family, the Ning family of Beijing met its downfall after many years. With illness forcing the retirement of the old man Ning, the Ning family had become shakier. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Ning family was oppressive. Although it was a family meeting, there wasn't the slightest sense of joy or happiness. Will Qingxue, that girl, still not change her mind? After remaining silent some time, a 50-year-old or so man sitting at the top seat knocked the table and asked. He was the current head of the Ning family, Ning Zhongze, and the eldest son of the old man Ning. He was also the governor of the Beijing River District. With Beijing being such a huge international city, a district governor was already better received than some vice state governors from other states. But in a place like Beijing, a district governor wasn't anything. With the old man Ning retiring and him being also in his 50s, district governor would be the final destination of his career if nothing magical happened. Big brother, it isn't up to her now. Third brother currently managed our Ning family medical material, and I think that he knows the current problem we are facing. Our original biggest supplier, the American Sika Company, is being controlled by that businesswoman from the Song family, which is lethal to our Ning family. After father retired, I don't think our Ning family could do anything in the political field anymore. If our commercial properties receive a big hit again, I think our Ning family will be on the decline. Although Song Shaowen is promiscuous, his Song family is still a big family. If we have a marriage alliance with them, not only will our business would see an immediate success, but Big Brother might also have the possibility to advance in his career. The middle-aged man sitting by Ning Zhongze's right-hand side spoke quickly with an excited tone. Ning Zhongze sighed and waved his hand. Zhongwei, I understand what you mean. Although having a marriage alliance with the Song family is definitely beneficial to our Ning family, Song Shaowen cannot be relied upon. Sai, I think we should discuss this thing with third brother. After all, Qingxue is his daughter. Big brother, I think fourth brother is right. At this time, we've reached the life and death moment of our Ning family, and we're only asking Qingxue to marry into the Song family. It's nothing significant. I think Qingxue could understand, and so can third brother. Plus, Qingxue is taking care of the business in Beijing, so she should know. Can't she see the big picture? The person who agreed was the second brother Ning Zhongsho sitting on the left. Dad, second uncle, and fourth uncle's words are all true. I think that although Shaowen is a bit promiscuous, which young person isn't these days? Usually these types of people change after getting married. This is for Qingxue's good as well. At least he is better than that paralyzed person in the Yi family. Plus, Shaowen has had feelings for Qingxue for a long time. He won't mistreat her. Seeing that both his uncle's opinions were unanimous, Ning Zhongze's eldest son, Ning Shili, also confirmed. Ning Zhongze remained silent for a while before raising his head and saying, We'll do this. I'll talk to Zhongfei and Zhongsho, and I'll get Huili to work on Qingxue. There are not a lot of days remaining before the 1st of November. Try to do the wedding in October. A youth sitting at the end opened his mouth, but seeing that the leader of the family had already spoken, he finally swallowed his words. He was the second son of Ning Zhongze, Ning Yang, and was the only one in the Ning family that didn't agree with this hasty decision of marriage. So, as soon as the family meeting finished, Ning Yang went straight for Ning Qingxue. Although after Ning Qingxue's public words last time, people in the outside world had thought of her being restrained by the Ning family. This was simply that Ning Qingxue didn't want to go out herself. Her personality was indifferent, and she didn't like going out. Ever since she was fired from her duties in the Ning family medical materials, she spent most of her time at home. Other than her only best friend, Li Mumei, she barely saw anyone. Li Mumei was not only Ning Qingxue's assistant in the Ning family medical material, but also her best friend and her cousin. If there was anyone in the Ning family that Ning Qingxue could still get along with, it was her cousin Ning Yang. However, Ning Yang had a lot of things on his mind and hardly came to see her. But today, Ning Yang came over, and this gave Ning Qingxue a bad feeling. "Brother Yang, long time no see." Li Mumei saw Ning Yang and immediately greeted. She and Ning Qingxue were talking about something. Ning Yang's face looked awful, but he didn't avoid the topic. "Qingxue, your life is in your hands. I think if you can go abroad, I can help you. The future of a family is not to be earned through a woman." The primary purpose of Ning Yang coming here was to help Ning Qingxue escape, because he was the only one who knew what sort of a person Song Shaowen was. After hearing Ning Yang's words, Ning Qingxue's face immediately became pale. No matter what she said publicly, she still couldn't escape the fate of being sold by her family. "Qingxue," Li Mumei called out worriedly. The room settled into an uncomfortable silence. Ning Yang knew that it would be tough even if he tried sending his cousin abroad. Plus, what use would it be leaving the country? She would ultimately be reeled back in by the family. "Cousin, don't worry. I'll help you arrange it first in case we're out of time." "Mumei, Qingxue is going to need your help." Ning Yang stood up and left hurriedly. If Ning Qingxue wanted to go abroad, this had to be done as soon as possible. If you give him some tens of $1,000s again, he would definitely do something that gives him face and money to spend. Ning Qingxue sighed. "I don't really care about my reputation. It is long gone. It's just, would the Song family take their revenge on him?" Chapter 19. The Girl at the Door of the Classroom. Chapter 19. The Girl at the Door of the Classroom. "Qingxue, I really don't know what to say about you, but the Song family is such a big family and they will want to keep their image, so if you marry Emo and something happens to him, anyone would relate that to the Song family. I don't think the Song family would do something that doesn't really benefit them." Li Mumei seemed to analyze the situation with experience. Ning Qingxue remained silent for a moment before nodding her head. "Okay, I will have to owe him one more time." However, Li Mumei shook her head. "Qingxue, you're wrong. This time you won't owe him. He will owe you. I can guarantee that Yimo's thoughts are different than yours. He would be glad to do so. How about this? Tomorrow is Jingwen's birthday, and we'll use this excuse to go to Ninghai. After Jingwen's birthday party, I'll go with you to Yimo and reveal our plan." Ning Qingxue was familiar with Su Jingwen. When she was still going to school, Su Jingwen was famously beautiful in Beijing. However, a few years before, something had happened to her mother and therefore had gone to Ninghai. However, Li Mumei was still very close friends with Su Jingwen. Yimo finally came to class after a long while, and now he had already self-taught himself with nearly all the content of these few years of university. He only came today because Xiao invited him for food, which was mainly because Xiao got a few free vouchers for the school's restaurant. Since there was free food, he wanted Yimo to come as well. If Yimo had only one friend in Ninghai University, that would have been Xiao. Normally, when Yimo went to class, Xiao would sit next to him as he got along well with Yimo. It had been like this ever since Yimo went to Ninghai University, and didn't change just because Yimo was kicked out of the Yi family. When Yimo recovered his consciousness the first time, he was awakened by Xiao, who also warned him not to make contact with Yan Yan. Later on, when Yimo was kicked out of the Yi family and had financial difficulties, he would try his best to help Yimo as much as he could. It could be said that in Ninghai University, the only people who helped Yimo in the end were Wang Ying and Xiao. Wang Ying's help might be due to Yiling, but Xiao was Yimo's real friend. "Yimo, this is Heartless Bing's class again. You are already on her bad side, and if you didn't come, it would have been okay. So when she teaches, don't say a word. If she sees you, she might want to trouble you again." Xiao said to Yimo carefully. Yimo smiled and patted Xiao's shoulder. "I won't care about these narrow-hearted women. Don't worry, it won't affect you. I can stay quiet for a whole month, much less during a lesson in class." Xiao also smiled, as he obviously didn't believe that Yimo could remain silent for a month. "Who did you call narrow-hearted, Yimo?" Someone paralyzed, like you could not possibly have the face to talk about others and even have the face to come to class? A very crisp girl voice interrupted Yi Mo's words. Yen Yen, what do you mean? Yi Mo wasn't talking about you. What right do you have to talk? Is it because you think Yi Mo can be bullied? Shi Xiu was not happy about Yan Yan's behavior. Io, Shi Xiu, you seem to have enough guts to yell. Yan Yan saw the goody-goody. Shi Xiu dared to yell at her and immediately went on the defensive. However, Yi Mo pulled Shi Xiu aside and said, "Why taking her seriously? Just pretend as if it was a harmless dog barking." Yi Mo. Yan Yan pointed at Yi Mo and was about to swear. Yi Mo sneered, and before Yan Yan could respond, he said, "Being ugly isn't your fault, but showing off your ugliness is your bad." "Oh, right. Didn't you say last time I couldn't go in bed with you? I'm sorry. I'm not interested in a dinosaur like you." Yi Mo was avenging the former soul of the body. Yan Yan was too cocky. Yan Yan was originally going to start swearing, but she suddenly laughed. Yi Mo actually called her ugly, although she wasn't the prettiest in the school. She was easily the most beautiful in the class, and she immediately fought back. "I'm ugly." "Yi Mo, you're blind. Open your eyes and look. Do you know someone prettier than me? Do you? If you do, then I'll admit that I'm ugly if not." At this moment, a soft voice at the door of the classroom interrupted her. "Yi Mo, come out. I've come looking for you a few times already, but I couldn't find you." Almost everyone looked towards the doorway, and all the male students' eyes immediately stared dead straight. A stunningly beautiful girl stood at the doorway. This girl at the door was like a flower that rose from the water. There were no signs of makeup. With shapely eyebrows and her faint smile and beautiful face, you didn't even need to look at her curvaceous body to know that she was a rare beauty. If this girl were a Ninghai University student, then the prettiest girl in the university wouldn't be Su Mei, but the girl in front of their eyes. Yan was like a chicken grabbed by its neck. Her rambling suddenly stopped. She was just saying that Yi Mo didn't know a woman prettier than her, and then immediately came a woman that was far above her league. Even worse, this woman was calling out to Yi Mo. Yi Mo stared coldly once at Yan Yan. He didn't need to take this woman seriously and didn't want to be affiliated with her in the future. "Jingwen, is there something up?" Yi Mo didn't think that Su Jingwen actually came to the classroom to find him. From her words, it sounded like this wasn't the first or second time she was doing this. Seeing that Yi Mo didn't call her sister Jingwen, but just called her Jingwen, Su Jingwen rolled her eyes but didn't say a word. Due to her father, Su Jingwen had a skewed view towards men. However, she was a lot less guarded around Yi Mo. Although Yi Mo wasn't the person she was looking for, he resembled that person. On top of that, Yi Mo looked at her with clear eyes and didn't have any vulgar intents. He was easy to read, just like an open book. Plus, Yi Mo was a student, and all these factors combined made Su Jingwen have a good impression of Yi Mo. "Can't I come looking for you when nothing is up? Do you have time? How about we talk outside?" Su Jingwen smiled and said. Yi Mo nodded helplessly. He knew that free food wasn't to be earned so easily. He needed to be careful accepting offers next time. Eating one meal meant that he had to take a shift for someone till midnight. And now Su Jingwen came looking for him. He thought about it and just stood at the doorway, telling Shi Xiu not to wait for him tonight. "Let's go." Just when Yi Mo said that to Su Jingwen, he saw the English teacher Yunbing walk in with a few textbooks. Her face was full of disgust when she saw Yi Mo leave the classroom. But when she looked at Su Jingwen, her face had a sliver of surprise which turned into pity. Of course, Yi Mo also saw Yunbin, but he didn't care about his grades, so he couldn't care less what this woman did. It didn't matter even if she failed him. Rate translation quality. Chapter 20. Invitation. Chapter 20. Invitation. Yi Mo, I want to ask for your help. Su Jingwen's tone sounded like she was embarrassed. Yi Mo thought to himself, I knew this was going to happen. However, his impression of Su Jingwen wasn't bad. From the first time when he saw her desperate to save her mom, he knew this woman was someone worth helping. Besides, although he went to the police station because of her last time, she was just acting out of goodwill. Tell me if I can help you, and if it doesn't take a long time, I will definitely do my best to assist you. It is my honor to help a beautiful lady, Yi Mo smiled. Actually, Yi Mo, you look nice when you smile. You need to smile more. Su Jingwen suddenly popped up with an entirely irrelevant sentence. Yi Mo became flustered for a bit. Although he understood people and how things worked in his new, reincarnated surroundings, there was a barrier in the depth of his heart. When he entered the police station last time, this defense grew stronger. He was scared that his secrets would be leaked and caused him to be in danger. Therefore, he was usually cold and reserved when he was around people. Now, when he heard Su Jingwen say this, he felt that he seemed to be a bit too careful. As long as he didn't expose his real secret, he wouldn't need to be so careful. Yi Mo, I've looked you up. Su Jingwen stopped and subtly looked at Yi Mo's expression. Seeing that his face was normal, she gasped a sigh of relief and continued. I have a cousin who is also in Ninghai University. Her name is Su Mei. I've heard about you from her. Do you have some misunderstanding with her? Her personality is a bit arrogant, but she isn't a bad person. Never mind, let's not talk about her. I don't understand her that well either. Su Jingwen stuttered for a long while but still couldn't finish her sentence. In fact, Su Mei told Su Jingwen that Yi Mo didn't know how to handle delicate situations. But Su Jingwen didn't take her words seriously at all. She was very clear what sort of a person Su Mei was. The reason she talked about Su Mei was that she didn't want Yi Mo to give up on himself. She still wanted to say that she knows someone very powerful who can even cure a person in a vegetative state. If she could find this person, then perhaps his problem would be cured too. However, she wasn't able to say this. After all, although she was a bit familiar with Yi Mo, it wasn't to the degree where they could say anything. They were just ordinary friends. Plus, how awkward would it be for a girl to say those words? Yi Mo understood Su Jingwen's meanings. Since she was Su Mei's cousin, it meant that she already knew about him. It was normal for her to be unable to express those words. He waved his hand to stop Su Jingwen from continuing. Actually, I'm living quite happily, and there isn't anything troubling me. Don't worry about it. Still, thank you for your concern. Okay, now let's talk about what I can help you with. Su Jingwen had a faint blush on her face and thought. Although Yi Mo's expression said that he really didn't care about his condition, was he really thinking that way and didn't care about it at all? However, Su Jingwen secretly made up her mind that if she met the person who sold the charms, she would ask if she could buy a charm that could cure Yi Mo. Although she hadn't known Yi Mo for long, she felt very comfortable being with him. Not only was Yi Mo handsome, but his personality was quite friendly and open. He didn't make her feel the slightest pressure. This was the reason she was willing to help Yi Mo. Today is my birthday, and due to family reasons, I haven't had a happy birthday for many years. I want to invite you to come to my birthday party tomorrow night. I wonder if you would be willing to come? What she really meant to say was that she needed a male partner for a dance, but she hadn't found the suitable person. Asking this innocent Yi Mo to help her out was perfect for this. Yi Mo became dazed, and some warmness rose in his heart. Su Jingwen knew that he was the abandoned son of the Yi family, and yet she still invited him. This showed that in her heart she had the same thought as Xiao, treating him as a true friend without exterior motives. Of course I would be willing to. Thank you for inviting me to your birthday party. I'll come for sure, Yi Mo agreed happily. Su Jingwen gave an invitation to Yi Mo and said, I won't have the time to call you that night, but it is at 6 p.m. at Yuan Private Place, and the address is on top. I need to go to the airport to pick up my friends, so I'll see you tomorrow night. Seeing Su Jingwen's Mercedes disappear, He thought that if he wanted to go to her birthday party, he needed a gift for her. He couldn't go empty-handed. Although he had some money on him, Yemo wasn't an idiot. He needed to save the money for cultivation. At last, Yemo bought a very ordinary jade from the market and made it into a magical jade bracelet artifact. Although it was a bracelet, there were only 6 pea-sized beads of jade on it. They were sculpted into circular shape from the jade Yemo bought and made into a magical defensive artifact. Although this magical defensive artifact didn't even have a level, it could still defend against some simple attacks. However, there were only 6 jade beads on this bracelet. Each time it defended against an attack, it would damage a jade bead. Although it didn't look very refined, it was practical and helpful. With Yemo's current ability, he could only finish 6. Hopefully, Su Jingwen would not need a bead from this bracelet in her whole lifetime. For someone as rich as Su Jingwen, a few $100s of jade was nothing to her. The bracelet Yemo was going to give looked a little ugly, and she might not even wear it. However, regardless of whether she was going to wear it or not, Yemo wouldn't mention the magic enclosed in this artifact. When he returned to his home, Su Wei still hadn't come back. Yemo cared for his flowers and grass a little. There was a month before he might be able to harvest the seeds of silver heart grass. After finishing these, Yemo then went toward one private place in high spirits. Ninghai Zhong Trao Airport. Su Jingwen saw Li Mumei, but there was a gorgeous girl beside Li Mumei who even rendered some sort of spiritual sense. Su Jingwen was wondering who was this girl. If it weren't for the faint worry on her face, she would have taken her as a goddess from out of this universe. Su Jingwen was not the only person attracted by Ning Qingshue's beauty, and when Su Jingwen walked over, many people set their eyes on the 2 women and thought, "These 2 women are breathtaking." In comparison, Li Mumei, who was usually considered beautiful, could only be viewed as normal. Jingwen, oh, happy birthday. I traveled especially to celebrate with you. Li Mumei saw Su Jingwen, who was walking over here from a distance, and started to speak animatedly. "Mumei, I am so happy that you can come to Ninghai. And this is..." Su Jingwen immediately grabbed Li Mumei's hands and gushed excitedly. "Jingwen, hello. I'm Mumei's cousin Ning Qingxue. I heard about you, and I wish you a happy birthday." Ning Qingxue smiled and said, "Thank you. So you are Qingxue, you really are pretty. No wonder they say you are the prettiest lady in Beijing. Even I'm a bit entranced." Su Jingwen didn't think that the girl in front of her was Ning Qingxue, but when she saw Ning Qingshue's somewhat dim eyes, she immediately thought of Yemo and stopped talking. Li Mumei seemed to notice the atmosphere was a bit cold and hurried to say, "Jingwen, Qingxue, there are a lot of people staring at us. We should go quickly." Chapter 21. Su Shengun 1. Chapter 21. Su Shengun 1. As Su Jingwen was driving the car, she thought, "Why did Ning Qingxue come? I am very familiar with her. Usually, someone like Ning Qingxue wouldn't come to a birthday party when she wasn't invited. Oh no." Su Jingwen suddenly remembered something important. Yemo is also coming tonight. What would happen if they see each other? "Jingwen, what's wrong? Your mind doesn't seem to be here." Li Mumei saw that Su Jingwen appeared to be a bit distracted and hurriedly asked, "Oh, nothing really. I suddenly remembered something, but it's fine now." "Oh, right, Mumei. You didn't tell me that Qingxue was coming. Qingxue, have you taken over your father's business by now? I heard some people saying that you were already at Ning Family Medical Materials." Su Jingwen tried to find some conversation in order to divert from her feelings of surprise. However, Li Mumei said, "Actually, Sister Qingxue took over the business in Beijing ages ago, and I have always been there to help Sister Qingxue manage the business. It's just that some things happened, and Sister Qingxue has now temporarily left Ning Family Medical Materials." Su Jingwen didn't ask what it was. It was probably internal conflict, and it was better not to ask about these things. Seeing there was trouble knitted between Ning Qingshue's eyebrows, she probably came to relieve herself of the unhappy things. Should she give Yi Mo a call to tell him not to come tonight, so that Ning Qingshue's doesn't feel worse? Thinking about it, Su Jingwen suddenly realized something important. Yi Mo didn't have a phone at all. He wasn't at school right now either, and she didn't even know where he lived, so she couldn't possibly contact him. By the looks of things, it was set in stone that Yi Mo and Ning Qingxue were going to meet. Sister Jingwen, I heard from Mume that your mother wasn't very well. Is she better now? Of course, Ning Qingxue could tell Su Jingwen was a bit distracted, so she took the initiative to ask first. Su Jingwen had returned to being herself and decided to worry about Yi Mo later. It wasn't something that she could control now anyway. Hearing Ning Qingxue ask, she smiled happily. My mother is all well. Didn't Mume tell you? Ning Qingxue felt a bit awkward. She didn't ask Li Mume about Su Jingwen's mother's condition before coming. However, Su Jingwen didn't seem to mind and continued. I met a master purely by chance. You guys don't know about it, but that master's charm, Su Jingwen admired Yi Mo the most now. When Ning Qingxue asked, she made it sound like that master who sold her the charms was indisputable and unrivaled in the whole universe. She even recounted the specific details of buying and using the charms. Ning Qingxue and Li Mume had their jaws open in shock after hearing this. They all stared stiffly at Su Jingwen. It was very rare to see someone like Su Jingwen being so superstitious, especially after receiving such a high education. To them, the person who sold Su Jingwen the charms definitely had an eloquent mouth. Jingwen, it's good that your mother is well. There is no need to go into such elaborate detail about how she recovered. Seeing how Su Jingwen was so superstitious, Li Mume could only hint at her. I know you guys don't believe me, and I won't force you to. I have a fireball charm on me. If I didn't treasure it so much, I would use it and show you guys. However, if I did, I wouldn't be able to buy another one even with all the money in the world since I can't find that master anymore, Su Jingwen said helplessly. Okay, we believe you, Su Shingun. Under great reluctance, Li Mume could only surrender. Even Ning Qingxue, who had a constant frown in her eyebrows, wanted to laugh. Su Jingwen was older than both of them, but her words were so unrealistic. It just could not be matched with her astute reputation. Seeing such a beautiful lady talk about a master who used shady charms really didn't match. If her own situation weren't so dire, she would have probably laughed seeing Su Jingwen put on such a Shingun show. Yi Mo made the bracelet and just put it straight in his pocket since he couldn't find a proper packaging to make it look better. He started recovering his qi immediately as he spent quite some effort into making this bracelet. If it weren't so difficult to sell them, he would probably make a few to sell. Since coming to this world, it was the first time Yi Mo took the taxi. He didn't want to run to Yuan private place, and neither did he know the way. Yi Mo's taxi stopped outside. The guard at the door saw Yi Mo take the taxi over, and was surprised as he didn't look like someone wealthy. Although he was wearing neat and clean clothes, his hair wasn't groomed and was unkempt. Moreover, he was wearing a normal pair of Vans. These shoes couldn't be worth more than $30 to $40. So he immediately stopped. Yi Mo, sir, this is a private place. It isn't open to public. Before the guard finished his words, Yi Mo took out the invitation and handed it to the guard as he didn't care. With this appearance, it was normal for the guard to keep a close eye on him. The guard looked through the invitation a few times, and after confirming, he returned it to Yi Mo with surprise. Apologies, please go in. Just when Yi Mo went into the yard, a red Porsche pulled into the yard. In contrast with his entrance, this time it was as though the guard was just purely for display. The red Porsche dashed past Yi Mo before slowly reversing back to where he stood. The driver was evidently quite arrogant. This was a big yard, not a high-speed freeway. One glance could tell that this was a very cocky person. Just as Yi Mo thought this, a girl jumped off the car. Clad in a red top and tight jeans, her womanly features were clearly outlined and an air of superior arrogance and glamour was evident. Su Mei. Yi Emo wasn't surprised to see her here. She was Su Jingwen's cousin after all, and it was normal for her to come to Su Jingwen's birthday party. However, although this woman was arrogant at school, she still seemed reserved. However, he didn't think that outside of school. She didn't bother to hide it at all. Yi Emo, stop! What are you doing here? Su Mei was rejected without reason last time and lost several $100s to Yi Emo, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Yi Emo stared at Su Mei in a feigned bafflement. I came here because I was invited. Is this place yours? Do I need to report to you before I come? At this moment, another girl jumped off the car. She dressed similar to Su Mei, but what made her more eye-catching was that her hair was dyed yellow. What's wrong, Mei Mei? Who is this guy? This girl asked Su Mei and scanned Yi Emo with a haughty side glance. Su Mei sneered, and before she could talk, a military-plated Audi parked at the door, but didn't come in. Instead, a 20-or-so-year-old youth got off. He also saw Yi Emo and walked over. Mei, long time no see. What's wrong? You don't seem to be happy. This youth had a smile and greeted her from a far distance. Su Mei saw this boy coming over, and her face immediately turned into a smile. Brother Wang Shu, you didn't even come to see me, yet you say long time no see? 1. Shen Gun, a person who pretends to be spiritually connected to a higher being and spreads false religious content to gain respect and social status. Chapter 22. If Life Was Just Like First Meeting. Chapter 22. If life was just like first meeting. I came now, didn't I? Jia Jia is here too. This youth had a calm tone and didn't have that impetuous temperament youth usually had. I thought brother Su didn't recognize me. The yellow-haired girl pretended to be angry. Yi Emo saw them and thought that, although this man looked very gentlemanly, there was a sense of ferociousness in his temperament, even a faint sense of a killer's chi. Ordinary people would be unable to discern this killer's chi, but Yi Emo killed many people and monsters in his past life. He could tell with one glance that this youth definitely killed before, and he killed blatantly. He should be even proud of doing it, otherwise he wouldn't have this type of killer's chi. However, Yi Emo didn't have any business here, so just as he turned to leave, this youth turned his head and extended his hand, saying, I'm Wang Su, you are? Yi Emo saw this youth extend his hand with a face full of mockery and immediately knew what he was trying to do. He extended his right hand slowly and casually said, Yi Emo. Seeing Yi Emo and Wang Shu shake hands together, the happiest person was Su Mei because she knew Wang Su had a quirky habit. Whenever he met a man for the first time, he would test their strength through a handshake. Once, her classmate shook hands with Wang Su and screamed in agony. Afterward, that guy didn't have the face to come after her again. Now, Yi Emo and Wang Su were shaking hands. What would the result be? Su Mei was even looking forward to hearing Yi Emo scream. Crack! Just a few sounds resounded. Wang Su felt he crushed Yi Emo's hands and even heard the sound of bones breaking. He didn't even know when Yi Emo took his hands away. He was shocked and regretted his actions. He thought that he used too much power and couldn't control it. He actually broke someone's hand. Su Mei and that yellow-haired girl called Jia Jia were also shocked. They didn't think Wang Su was cruel enough to actually break Yi Emo's hands. The uncomfortable sound of bones cracking gave them goosebumps. Ah, Wang Su, brother, why did you break his hand? He was invited by Sister Jean Gwen. Where's Yi Emo? When Su Mei said this, she just realized Yi Emo had disappeared. Wang Su also knew things had grown serious. He didn't think Yi Emo was so fragile. He just shook his hand and didn't even use his full power, yet Yi Emo's hands broke. What was this? Hearing Su Mei's exclaim, only then did he see that Yi Emo had disappeared, but none of them actually saw when Yi Emo left. He's just a deprecated student, give him some money, and tell him to go to the hospital himself. What a useless thing! The girl called Jia said immediately. This valiant youth smiled bitterly. Now Sister Jean Gwen is going to tell me off. He definitely went in. I'll go and check up on him. Sigh. I didn't think his hand was so frail. Yi Mo really didn't want to waste his time talking to these people who had nothing better to do. He came for Su Jingwen's birthday party, and having a conflict with the people here would only give Su Jingwen a hard time. However, he was also very satisfied with his bone retraction technique. Although his cultivation didn't progress much and was still only in the first stage of qi gathering, his mortal martial arts improved a lot. Yi Mo didn't know what degree the strongest person in this world was. But since he couldn't cultivate normally, he might as well practice mortal martial arts to make himself stronger and safer. However, he knew that even if his martial arts were trained to the absolute limit, there were still all sorts of weapons from which he would not be safe. While the trio of Su Mei, Wang Su, and the other girl was still discussing Yi Mo's injuries, Yi Mo had already entered the building. There was still a waiter at the entrance to the door. He glanced at Yi Mo's invitation and let him inside. There was already a lot of people. Su Jingwen made the event huge. It was probably to celebrate her mother's recovery as well, while meeting up with friends she hadn't been with for a long time. Yi Mo, thanks for coming to my birthday. Come, sit over here. Su Jingwen saw Yi Mo as soon as he came in and hurried to take Yi Mo to a table. Of course, I said I would be coming, didn't I? Yi Mo smiled and was ready to take out his present when he heard someone say, Ah, Jingwen, who is this handsome man? Is he your boyfriend? But when he saw Yi Mo's normal vans and Yi Mo's apparels, he stopped his latter half of the sentence and stuttered to say, Ah, his dressing is really unique. Su Jingwen was afraid that Yi Mo would feel bad and hurried to say, He is my friend Yi Mo. Su Jingwen then realized that Yi Mo was staring straight behind her back and didn't seem to hear what she said. She hurried to turn around. It was Ning Qingxiue and Li Mumei walking over. Su Jingwen groaned to herself and thought, how could they have met so early? She didn't have the chance to explain things clearly to Yi Mo yet. Yi Mo looked as Ning Qingxiue made her way over. This woman wore a faint yellow petticoat which struck him in his heart. Her silky black hair fell casually on her shoulders, rendering a sense of soft beauty, and her almond-shaped face didn't even have the slightest trace of makeup. She wore a deer-shaped hairpin in her hair, and a few strands of hair fell casually at the corner of her eye. Despite her sheer beauty, her eyes held an indescribable glimpse of worry and loss, and, when she walked over, it was as if a goddess was walking on a cloud. He was wondering why those searing eyes were so familiar to him. Those eyes filled with worry and loss. Could it be Luoying? Yes, her eyes looked too similar to his master Luoying. Yi Mo exhaled a long breath and came back to his senses. Chapter 23. Ning Qingxue's First Impression. Chapter 23. Ning Qingxue's First Impression. Your hand. Su Jingwen looked at Yi Mo, who appeared to be perfectly fine, and pointed to his hand in shock. Yi Mo saw Su Mei and frowned. Jingwen, I'm going to rest for a while. After having said these few words, he just walked to the side and switched table. Yi Mo. Ning Qingxue looked weirdly at Li Mumei, thinking who this Yi Mo was. Li Mumei smiled bitterly as she pulled Ning Qingxue to the side and said, He is actually the Yi Mo you were engaged to. It's just that he seems a bit different than before. Not only did his looks change, but even his temperament is completely different than before. I don't know what happened to him, but I haven't seen him for a long time. It's just that I don't know why Jingwen would invite him over. He is Yi Mo. Ning Qingxue subconsciously looked at Yi Mo again. Yi Mo's words and mannerism didn't seem cocky nor humble. Although he wore simple clothes, his mannerism was very natural and free-flowing. He didn't seem awkward at all and didn't have the temperament of spoilt rich kids. He even had a faint sense of manly charisma that she felt from a distance. How could someone like him be impotent? Ning Qingxue was beginning to hesitate, but then she laughed at herself. If Yi Mo really was this person, then she didn't even know if he would agree to her plans. Qingxue, I feel that he has changed a lot. I'll try to get some information from him first. You can sit down. When Li Mumei saw Yi Mo, she suddenly felt hesitant towards her plan. The Yi Mo in front of her eyes didn't seem similar to the useless person, according to what people were saying. If they had to be picky, then it was that his hair was a bit messy and wasn't shaped by a professional hairdresser. Ning Qingxue grabbed Li Mumei's hand. Mumei, I should be the one to do these type of things. Yi Mo saw that the people here were all wealthy, each wearing glamorous clothes. Comparatively, he was the most poorly dressed, but he wasn't ashamed. Instead, he was extremely calm. When someone was at a different altitude in life, their mindset was completely different, and they remained unaffected by wealth and glamour. Even if Yi Mo had those glamorous clothes, he would still live his life according to his style. His interests weren't on these things, but if it were, he was confident that he would become a wealthy man everyone admired. And then what? Life was short anyway, barely a few decades. You don't bring anything when you are born, and you won't bring anything with you when you die. His only goal used to be achieving eternal life. Although cultivation had become slow, his intent had not changed. However, now he had an extra concern for his master Luoying. Her feelings for him were undeniable, and his for hers too. As for other things, they were all just like passing clouds to him. Yi Mo! Ning Qingxue came beside Yi Mo's table and called out. Her slightly shaky tone betrayed mixed feelings. You can sit. Yi Mo smiled faintly. Ning Qingxue suddenly had a feeling of old familiarity. Even though she knew it was her first time seeing Yi Mo. Thanks. Ning Qingxue sat down and suddenly felt a feeling of easiness or a type of serenity. Yi Mo was like a calm lake, making her feel safe at heart. Your eyebrows are knitted so tightly and your eyes look fatigued. Is there something troubling your heart? If I can help you, I'm willing to. Yi Mo obviously knew that a girl like Ning Qingxue wouldn't come and talk to a man she broke a marriage pact with for no reason. Since she came, she must have had something on her mind, so he might as well bring it up first. And although her conversation with Li Mumei was quiet, Yi Mo still heard it. He just couldn't have imagined that his fiancée was such a beautiful woman, almost as pretty as Luoying. He didn't have a negative impression of Ning Qingxue, or rather, he didn't feel anything towards her. But when he saw Ning Qingxue's troubled eyes, he was reminded of Luoying. Ning Qingxue looked at Yi Mo in surprise. She was astonished at Yi Mo's meticulous insights and his clear thinking. This is the useless, good-for-nothing kid that his family would abandon. Ning Qingxue thought about it for some time, but found it hard to articulate. She just sighed and thought, if only Li Mumei came to say it. Yi Mo sat opposite her and didn't feel the slightest pressure, but instead gave her a sense of serenity and peace. Ning Qingxue finally made up her mind and said, It's because of my marriage. However, this time the indifferent Yi Mo frowned, and there was finally a ripple in his heart. It was his first time interrupting Ning Qingxue's words. Your Ning family has already broken our marriage pact, and now, I'm not a member of the Beijing Yi family anymore. Yi Mo didn't finish a sentence, but his meaning was clear. It meant that he could help with anything but issues concerning marriage. It was her family that first broke off the marriage, and coming crawling back to him now was crossing the line. Although he had a good impression of Ning Qingxue, it didn't mean that Ning Qingxue could be exempted on this matter. I'm sorry. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt helpless. Yi Mo smiled faintly. You don't need to be sorry. I'm a good-for-nothing person kicked out by the Yi family. I'm not a suitable match for your Ning family anyway, and breaking the marriage pact holds certain freedom for me. I don't mean to reproach you for that. I just don't want to talk about it. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt uneasy in her heart. If she had heard these words before meeting Yi Mo, Then she would pretend otherwise. But after seeing Emo, she felt that her contemptuous views towards Emo and her subconscious feeling that Emo was not a match for her were laughable. The current Emo appeared to have nothing but his plain and confident temperament and his open-minded outlook. It was a far cry from the Emo in her memory. It was as though he wasn't the same Emo that owned nothing, but a Emo who had a condescending look on the world and stood at the peak of the clouds. This feeling made Ning Qingxue uneasy. Emo sighed. He knew that Ning Qingxue had her troubles, but since it wasn't something he could solve, then there was nothing he could do. Thinking about that, he said, since Ning Qingxue seemed to know what Emo wanted to see. She bit her lips and interrupted Emo's words. "Tonight, I want to go to." She suddenly felt a satisfying pleasure for interrupting Emo's words. It was as though the discomfort she felt when Emo interrupted her had dissipated. But Ning Qingxue didn't think that her words were also interrupted. "Qingxue, it really is you? I didn't think I would see you during Jingwen's birthday party. This is such a surprise." As soon as these words were said, a youth carrying half a glass of red wine had appeared beside Emo's table. Ning Qingxue frowned and didn't speak. This youth was decent-looking, but his eyes were very fidgety. He saw Emo on his first glance, but ignored him. This was because Emo didn't even seem like a guest or even a waiter. "Move over. I haven't seen Qingxue for a long time." This fidgety-eyed youth walked in front of Emo and ordered him. Chapter 24. Shabby Gift. Chapter 24. Shabby Gift, Zhaohong. "Sorry, I'm busy right now. Please sit somewhere else." Ning Qingxue was annoyed since she finally summoned the courage to say what she wanted, but was interrupted. Zhaohong looked at Emo in surprise and was wondering how this poor-looking person, who somehow found his way in here, could be connected to Ning Qingxue. "Hello, I'm Zhaohong. I just came back from Cambridge University, and I'll be staying at the Ning High Government office for now. If you have any trouble in Ning High, just come to me. I can help you with the trivial stuff." Zhaohong didn't leave just because of Ning Qingxue's words, and instead extended his hands elegantly. For him, shaking hands with Emo was due to Ning Qingxue, although he didn't know why Ning Qingxue was talking to this person. He just wanted to get a good impression from Ning Qingxue. What took Zhaohong by surprise was that Emo casually took a fruit from the waiter's plate and didn't even seem to see Zhaohong's hands. Zhaohong's face reddened and awkwardly dropped his hand. He glared at Emo and was just regretting extending his hand when Wang Su came over. "Brother, you're quite something. Your move even tricked me. Nice technique. This is my number. We must have a talk sometimes." Wang Su patted Emo's shoulder excitedly as soon as he came and gave him a name card with only his phone number. Emo had a good first impression of Wang Su. He felt Wang Su was a decent person and could become friends. So once he heard Wang Su say this, he also smiled and said, "Sure, gladly." Ning Qingxue saw Emo's completely opposite attitudes towards two different people and seemed to be thinking about it. "Brother Su, you are here." "Hee hee." Zhaohong saw Wang Su and laughed awkwardly. "Fake foreigner, why did you come back? Aren't you supposed to be in England?" Wang Su's words were very straightforward. Zhaohong said awkwardly, "I have already graduated. I am now working in the government office at Ning High City. I didn't think Brother Su had the time to come to." It was conveniently on the way for me to Ning High. After Wang Su had responded to Zhaohong, he turned to Emo and said, "Brother, you must remember to call me later on." "Oh, give me your number too." "He doesn't have a phone." Su Jingwen's voice came here in time. Emo laughed bitterly in his heart. No matter where he sat, there would be a lot of people surrounding him quickly. He didn't like this boisterous environment. He had the urge to give Su Jingwen her present and leave. "Jingwen, happy birthday to you. I brought this diamond necklace from England just for you. I hope you will like it." Zhaohong saw he was starting to be neglected from the conversation, and hurried out to take his present. "Thank you, Zhao Hong." After saying a few words, Su Jingwen took the necklace and gave it to the female servant in the background. As Zhao Hong saw that Su Jingwen didn't give his gift a second thought, a glimpse of disappointment flashed across his eyes. "Sister Jingwen, I also brought something for you." Su Mei noticed the situation and immediately gave out a set of cosmetics products. At this moment, the guests all started giving their gifts, but many people already gave their presents at the door. Those who came in to give her the gifts were all Su Jingwen's good friends. Even Ning Qingxue gave an exquisite chest brooch. Yi Mo then realized that, although he deemed his present to be the most precious, its look compared to other people's presents was barely acceptable. However, at this moment, Su Jingwen had to look full of hope at him. Yi Mo smiled bitterly. He took out the bracelet he made from his pocket and gave it to Su Jingwen as he said, "I made this myself. I know it's a bit shabby and I apologize, but I didn't have the money to buy something more expensive." The bracelet was made of 6 pea-sized beads scattered loosely at different places. It was easily discernible that the jade had a crappy quality and obviously didn't look good. Everyone around them looked at Yi Mo's gift in surprise and thought, even if you didn't have money, a random piece of jewelry would still look better than this weird bracelet you made yourself. The beads are ugly. Perhaps it was even made from a fake piece of jade. If that was true, then this bracelet was only worth a few dollars, which was much cheaper than any finished good. PFFF! Some people in the crowd finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. This guy really was unique. Not only did he wear poor clothes, but also gave such a poor presents. This present is really unique, probably the only one that exists in the world. Hee. Zhao Hong saw Yi Mo offering this gift and finally found a chance to ridicule Yi Mo. Su Jingwen rolled her eyes toward Zhao Hong, but happily accepted Yi Mo's bracelet while she wore it joyfully on her wrist. Thank you. Thank you for making a present for me yourself. I really like this bracelet. Does it have a name?" Yi Mo smiled and said, "I named it the 6 Harmony." 6 Harmony? This name is really quite unique. Su Mei looked at the sanguine Su Jingwen and wanted to say something about Yi Mo, but resisted the urge to. Ning Qingxue saw Yi Mo giving such a cheap present, yet still had a calm face without any sign of uneasiness, and when she looked at Su Jingwen's joy of receiving the present, Ning Qingxue suddenly felt a weird feeling that she couldn't explain. Soft music played, and the first dance was coming. Just when everyone started guessing who Su Jingwen would get to dance with her for the first song, Su Jingwen looked at Yi Mo and said, "Yi Mo, would you dance with me for this tune?" He is Yi Mo. Zhao Hong obviously heard about the things between Yi Mo and Ning Qingxue, and his expression became weird. From Su Jingwen accepting Yi Mo's present and wearing it on her hand to inviting Yi Mo to dance with her, even those who didn't know Su Jingwen knew that Yi Mo was probably someone Su Jingwen pushed out to be a shield. It was to defend against those who wanted to dance with her tonight. However, Ning Qingxue didn't think this way. She felt that Su Jingwen genuinely wanted to invite Yi Mo to dance. Although she didn't know why Su Jingwen would do something like this, there was an unreasonable feeling of annoyance in her heart. She immediately felt confused about her feelings. Yi Mo also didn't think Su Jingwen would invite him to this gathering for this, and said awkwardly, "Unfortunately, I don't know how to dance at all." Su Jingwen became dazed for a moment. She considered everything else except for the fact that Yi Mo couldn't dance. Although Yi Mo was abandoned by the Yi family, he was still once a young master there, and he was a student of Ninghai University. How could he not know how to dance? Only Li Mumei knew that Yi Mo really didn't know how to dance. In the past, although Yi Mo was boastful, he never seemed to go to the dance floors or clubs. He barely had any friends, and only liked to show off and be arrogant. Chapter 25. The First Dance. Chapter 25. The First Dance. I can teach you, Su Jingwen responded. She also knew this was an excuse, but she would find it hard to reject if someone else offered to dance with her first. Of course, as soon as Su Jingwen said those words, the surrounding people looked at her. Teach him to dance? Could this be learned in such a short moment? Jingwen, how about this? The first dance is about to begin. I'll dance with you first, and I'll call a few professional dancers to teach Yi Mo how to dance later. The one speaking was Wang Peng. When did he come? Yi Mo thought as he looked at Wang Peng, whose eyes were watching him back coldly. The warning was obvious in his eyes. However, Yi Mo became vigilant. It was not because Wang Peng showed animosity towards him, but because Wang Peng's hands were healed. Yi Mo knew his technique. He left a sliver of Kai inside Wang Peng's bones, and, with the modern medical standards, there was no method to remove it. If he wanted to have his wrist completely cured, he needed a master who had already cultivated qi, or a cultivator that cultivated qi. There were masters like this. It looked like he needed to be careful in the future. He didn't know what the masters here were capable of, so he had to stay vigilant. Although there didn't seem to be any cultivators here, who could be sure? He was a cultivator hidden in the city himself. And even normal cultivators were no match for some people who cultivate mortal martial arts to the absolute limit. Although Yi Mo cultivated both, he still didn't dare to be careless. After all, his powers were still relatively low. No need, Yi Mo, let me teach you. Su Jingwen immediately refused Wang Peng's suggestion and did not take her eyes off Yi Mo, who smiled faintly. If Wang Peng hadn't arrived, he would have probably said that he was not able to learn it in such a short time. But since Wang Peng came and targeted him, Yi Mo wouldn't back down. Okay, you don't need to teach me. Just tell me once. Hearing Yi Mo's words, Wang Peng was even more annoyed at Yi Mo. He can learn it just by being told once. No one would believe that. Even Su Jingwen didn't believe him. But she only needed Yi Mo to complete the dance with her. She didn't really think that Yi Mo only needed to be told once to learn it without any practice. However, since Yi Mo had already said that, Su Jingwen explained to him the moves of the waltz and even showed him a few moves. That's enough. Seeing Su Jingwen had finished, Yi Mo smiled and stopped her. At this time, the first dance music was already beginning. Everyone looked at Yi Mo and Su Jingwen walking into the dance pit. They wanted to see how Yi Mo would perform, and some people were waiting to see Yi Mo be embarrassed. Ning Qingxue looked at Yi Mo. She had a feeling that Yi Mo's smile meant that he was confident on the matter. Yi Mo grabbed Su Jingwen's hand, and a faint aroma wafted to his nose, engulfing him in a complex, indescribable feeling. Other than the moment he fled with his master, he had never been so close to any woman. His heart started to beat faster. Although Luoying carried him to escape in his last life, that moment was too short and didn't even have the chance to react before he fell unconscious. Today it was different, for he was grabbing Su Jingwen's hand and even moving with the music. Yi Mo, you cheated me. You said you didn't know how to dance, but your dance moves are perfectly fine. I won't believe that you could dance so well with me just telling you once. When Su Jingwen started to dance with Yi Mo, she immediately felt that Yi Mo's was not someone dancing for the first time. His moves were agiler and more in sync with the music than hers. Yi Mo didn't explain why he would know just by being told once. It was useless to even if he did anyway. Could he tell Su Jingwen that he had spirit sense? These moves were way too simplistic compared to what he cultivated. Instead, he just asked, "Do you often dance?" Yi Mo held onto Su Jingwen's hand and passed on his body temperature. Occasionally, she would brush against Yi Mo's body. Su Jingwen felt like she was playing with fire. The masculine charisma from Yi Mo's body made her feel lost. Yet his light breath on her made her feel great calmness. Was he really a student? Everyone around saw Yi Mo and Su Jingwen dancing, moves charged with chemistry. and everyone came to the realization that this EMO was only pretending not to know how to dance. In this era, which young master didn't know how to dance? Wang Peng's face was pale with fury as he felt played and cheated. This made him very annoyed, and soon he put EMO in the same position in his heart as the person who sold the charms. A gruesome fate would await him. Ning Qingxue looked quietly at EMO and Su Jingwen's synchronized dance moves as she listened to the soft music. It was unknown what she was thinking, but her face seemed calm. After the tune was over, Su Jingwen appeared to linger in the mood. But after hearing the claps around her, she realized the song was over yet couldn't help but reminisce. The music started playing again, and everyone began to look for a dance partner as they entered the dance pit. Just when Wang Peng wanted to invite Su Jingwen again to dance, he suddenly saw Ning Qingxue, and his eyes immediately brightened up. He hurriedly walked over and asked, "Hello, my name is Wang Peng. May I have the honor to dance with you?" Ning Qingxue looked coldly at Wang Peng and didn't even reply. Instead, she walked in front of EMO and said, "EMO, I didn't have the chance to finish what I was saying before. Could we continue this conversation?" Wang Peng became even angrier, and his face grew paler. Su Jingwen already knew that Ning Qingxue and EMO had broken their marriage pact. But she didn't know why Ning Qingxue kept asking for EMO. Was there something else? Just when Su Jingwen wanted to say something, Li Mumei walked over and pulled Su Jingwen. "Jingwen, I have some things I need to talk to you about. Let's go." Seeing Su Jingwen, who was already far away, EMO looked at Ning Qingxue and said, "Okay, we'll sit for a while on the side." EMO was originally planning to leave after finishing this dance, but could only stay due to Ning Qingxue. Wang Peng looked at the beautiful goddess-like Ning Qingxue being taken away by EMO. Although he was livid, there was nothing he could do. All he could think about was when he would teach this guy a harsh lesson. After finding a far-off corner to sit, EMO spoke straightforwardly. "I'm no longer a member of the Yi family in Beijing. We are now two people from two worlds. What do you need me to do?" Ning Qingxue stayed quiet for quite a while before saying, "EMO, I don't want to say it here. Could we go to where you live tonight? I'm sorry, but I really need your help." "What?" EMO thought he heard wrong. A girl like Ning Qingxue would take the initiative to ask to go to his place at night? No matter what it was, this didn't seem to be right. Chapter 26. Taking Ning Qingxue home. Chapter 26. Taking Ning Qingxue home. What? Qingxue wants to marry EMO. How is this possible? Su Jingwen was also shocked by Li Mumei's words. She didn't think that Ning Qingxue had such a crazy idea. Her first reaction was actually to oppose the decision, and Li Mumei looked at Su Jingwen with some degree of shock to her response to the situation. Su Jingwen also seemed to realize that her reaction was inappropriate and ridiculed herself. "I'm only saying Qingxue is such an excellent girl. How could she? Or rather, why would she decide to marry EMO? Even if she wanted to avoid the marriage arranged by her family, she shouldn't do that to herself." Li Mumei sighed and replied, "It's because EMO is disabled that Qingxue would make such a decision. Sister Qingxue is really unfortunate. However, today I saw EMO, and he is completely different from the EMO in my memories. I had no idea a person could change so much. Sai, if he weren't kicked out of the Yi family and didn't have a problem with his body, then everything would be perfect." Su Jingwen sunk back into silence. She didn't know why, but unconsciously, she just wanted to disagree with EMO marrying Ning Qingxue, but she couldn't find any reason. Was it just because he danced with me today? Or was it because he looked like that master who sold me the charms? What's wrong? Jingwen? Li Mumei saw Su Jingwen become silent and hurriedly ask, "Huh? Oh, nothing. I was just wondering if maybe I could help with something." Su Jingwen was dragged back into the reality by Li Mumei. Li Mumei didn't know why Su Jingwen's mind always wandered off, so she could only say, I will send you some photos of Ning Qingxue and Yi Mo sleeping together in pajamas to you. You just need to find an entertainment media outlet to release them and then find some journalists to interview them about their marriage. Su Jingwen looked at Li Mumei with her eyes wide open and said after a while, You thought of such a wicked idea? You will damage Qingshue's reputation. Li Mumei sighed once again before responding. Even if her reputation was damaged, it is better than being in the hands of Song Shaoan. Your Su family is also in Beijing. I think you know what sort of hungry wolf Song Shaoan is. If Sister Qingxue had a choice, do you think that she would want to do this? Su Jingwen already knew what sort of person Song Shaoan was. Saying he was bad was the understatement of the year. He was a demon that ate humans without spitting the bones, and countless girls in Beijing suffered in his hands. She also understood why Ning Qingxue would make this decision. After a few moments of thinking, Su Jingwen replied, However, this way, wouldn't Yi Mo be the victim? He's innocent here. I also know that he is innocent, and initially I thought that by giving him some money he would be glad to do it. But I almost couldn't recognize the Yi Mo of today compared to the Yi Mo from the past. Could a person really change this much after experiencing hardship? I can no longer be of any help with this situation. We can only wait and see if Yi Mo wishes to help Ning Qingxue, and if he doesn't, then there's nothing we can do anymore. Li Mumei said helplessly. Su Jingwen opened her mouth, but eventually didn't say anything. At this moment, both of them were silent. Ah, what would be so important to you that we would have to go where I live for you to say it? Can't you say it here? Yi Mo looked at her with surprise. Ning Qingxue lowered her head. She couldn't bear to explain the plan to Yi Mo. If Yi Mo didn't agree to Li Mumei's plan, would leaving the country even work? After thinking for a while, she grounded her teeth and said, I want to go to your place tonight because there's something I have to talk to you about privately. Seeing how she suddenly popped this sentence with tightly frowned eyebrows, Yi Mo sighed. Although he didn't know Ning Qingxue's intentions, he seemed to see his master before him with tightly knit eyebrows like that. So he said helplessly, Fine, you can come with me. We will leave in a moment, but please just wait for me a little. I have to say goodbye to Su Jingwen first. You agreed. Ning Qingxue stood up in pleasant surprise. The first time she saw Yi Mo, she was prepared to be rejected by him since he was completely different from what Li Mumei told her. She didn't think Yi Mo would agree so easily. Jingwen, I'm going. Qingxue has some issues she would like to discuss and is coming with me. Just when Yi Mo stood up, he saw Su Jingwen walk over with another girl. He seemed to have seen that girl before, but didn't have any impression of her. Li Mumei saw that Yi Mo didn't even seem to notice her, as if he didn't know her. She thought to herself that he had definitely changed. Ah, Yi Mo, you agreed? Su Jingwen looked at Ning Qingxue and Yi Mo with a weird look. After her reply, she then realized why she would ask something like that. Meanwhile, Yi Mo looked at the three girls' expressions and understood that there had to be something he didn't know. Yet he just smiled faintly. Even if there was something he didn't know, Yi Mo, wasn't afraid of anything. When Ning Qingxue took her luggage case and went on the taxi with Yi Mo, she suddenly experienced a weird feeling. From the moment she walked on the streets with Yi Mo, it seemed as though all the pressure and worry in her heart were gone and was suddenly relieved. This place is where you live. Ning Qingxue had an immediate sense of pleasantry after seeing Yi Mo residing in a house with a yard. This place was soundless, and environment was very elegant. He really knew how to find places and discovered such a good place to live. Yi Mo smiled and said, Yeah, it cannot, however, compare with where you live. It's a bit shabby. Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, No, I really like it here. Yi Mo, you're finally back? Let me tell you, last time you went, who is she? When Su Wei first glanced upon Ning Qingxue, She was shocked by Ning Qingshue's beauty. She always thought she had been good-looking, but compared with Ning Qingxue, she was like an ugly duck. This shy Nin could actually bring home such a beautiful girl? You really couldn't judge people by their appearances. But Yemo didn't seem to be ugly either. Ning Qingxue also saw Su Wei and, as she noticed that the girl gave people a refreshing feeling, she thought, Yemo's tastes are not bad. No wonder he was hesitating whether he should take me home. It was because he already had a girl he was living with. Ning Qingxue even started to wonder if Yemo was a natural playboy, but suddenly realized that her thoughts were a bit revolting. She didn't really care about these things. She only came to get married to him. Wait, wouldn't this girl be opposed to that? Ning Qingxue suddenly felt uneasy. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, and just when the two girls thought Yemo could help them introduce each other, Yemo walked inside first. Ning Qingxue looked at Su Wei but could only follow Yemo and walk inside. You can sleep in my room tonight. If you have something that you want to tell me, you can do it now, Yemo told her as he brought Ning Qingxue to his room. Huh, then where are you going to sleep tonight? Ning Qingxue came planning to sleep in the same room as Yemo, but on the couch. She only needed people to know she was sleeping in the same room as Yemo. However, when she asked this, she immediately felt it was inappropriate. It wasn't because she was shy. She was already prepared and wasn't embarrassed about it. She just suddenly remembered the girl at the door. She didn't think Yemo already had a girlfriend and was living with her. In her eyes, if they weren't in a relationship, they had no reason to live together. Ning Qingxue didn't have the concept of renting a place together in her mind. No need, I have a place to stay, Yemo said casually. Sorry, Yemo, did I cause misunderstandings with your girlfriend? Ning Qingxue asked uneasily. Her words were also meant to test and see if that girl was his girlfriend or not. Yemo waved his hand calmly and didn't bother explaining to Ning Qingxue as he felt that he didn't need to. Instead, he said, You have something to tell me. Now that we're here, you can say it. Chapter 27. Is this a business deal? Chapter 27. Is this a business deal? Seeing that Yemo didn't deny, Ning Qingxue sighed. He had a girlfriend, and she knew this thing couldn't be done. However, he didn't seem to be living with her. Now that she came, she instead gave him the opportunity to live with his girlfriend. Because I want to get married to you. Ning Qingxue couldn't find a proper way to put it, so she just said it straight out. What took her by surprise was that Yemo didn't seem shocked at all. Yemo's appearance did make Ning Qingxue feel strange. She saw that Yemo was very calm and didn't say a word, so a moment later she asked quietly, Aren't you curious? Don't you want to ask me why? Although the current Yemo wasn't extremely calculative, how could Ning Qingxue hide her thoughts from him? From the time when Wang Ying told him that Ning Qingxue was using him to stop others from proposing to her, to how she asked to come to his house at night and even asked to get married to him, he had already connected these things and analyzed them. Yemo immediately knew that Ning Qingxue was asking to use him as a shield again. Seeing Yemo's calm expression while remaining silent, Ning Qingxue was feeling more unrest and asked guiltily, I won't obstruct you and your girlfriend. I just need everyone else to know that we are living together and even got married. I will explain it to your girlfriend, as he expected. She wanted to use him as a shield again. Losing his interest, Yemo waved his hand and said, You don't need to explain it to other people. This thing has nothing to do with Su Wei. She doesn't have any business with you. Although hesitating for a moment and wanting to reject, Yemo saw Ning Qingxue's tragic eyes and was a bit moved. Although this woman had the intention to use him, she didn't hide it. Furthermore, Yemo didn't even care if he was used in this way. The main reason that prompted Yemo to help her was her sorrowful eyes that made his heart beat faster. Although he didn't know what happened to Ning Qingxue, since she was forced to make such a decision, it meant that what was about to happen to her wasn't something she could bear with. I can pay money. I won't make you help out for nothing, Seeing that Yemo was hesitating, Ning Qingxue hurried to add the words. Fine, I agree. When we get the marriage certificate, is up to you. However, I don't want you to go around telling people my identity. Yemo's reply was very plain, as if talking about something completely irrelevant to himself. Ning Qingxue looked at Yemo, surprised by joy. She didn't think that Yemo would agree to her words, without asking her any questions. Regardless of what Yemo thought, she was still grateful towards him. As for Yemo's last sentence, she took it as not allowing her to tell Su-wei. This card contained $500,000. You can use that for now. The password is 575757. Ning Qingxue took out a card and gave it to Yemo. Yemo took the card and laughed at himself as he said, Very well. Since you have paid now, this is a business deal between us. When you feel the agreement is over, you can leave yourself. I'm going to rest now. Seeing Yemo's desolate back figure, Ning Qingxue's heart suddenly squeezed. It was as though she did something wrong. What did she do wrong? Ning Qingxue was sitting on Yemo's bed and was lost in thought. Perhaps what she felt wrong was Yemo agreeing due to the money, which meant that Mume was right about him. When Yemo walked out of his room, Su-wei had already gone into hers. He held the credit card as waves erupted in his heart. The instant he took the credit card, he had the urge to throw the card in her face and tell her to piss off. The only reason he let Ning Qingxue come in and even help her was due to the striking resemblance between his helpless master and Ning Qingxue's eyes filled with melancholy. Shaking his head, he started wondering to himself what Ning Qingxue did wrongly. Probably in her mind, she thought that what she did was right. Anyway, he already gave his room to Ning Qingxue, so Yemo had nowhere to go. Luckily, he had always been cultivating on the north side of the yard, which was near the back. In this spot, there was an old tree, and every time Yemo cultivated under it, he felt more peaceful. Yemo sat under the tree, cultivating for an entire night. He felt his chi getting stronger and couldn't help but to smile faintly. All the annoyance from last night had dissipated, and from today onwards, he decided that it would be pretty good to cultivate here each night. It looked like people needed to be pushed to be motivated. Before Ning Qingxue could even discuss when they would get married, Yemo went straight to school. When Yemo had already run to the school, Ning Qingxue and Su-wei finally got up. After they had greeted as they saw each other, both of them became a bit shy. For them, Yemo was sleeping with the other the night before. Perhaps it was more strange for Ning Qingxue, as she knew that Yemo was impotent and wondered how he could sleep with someone. But obviously, she would be too embarrassed to ask such a question. After studying for half the day in the library, Yemo went to the dorms and slept during the whole afternoon. At night, he was dragged by Shi Xiu to the restaurant for food. The main reason was that he still got a free coupon for the Juwei restaurant at the school. Yemo, you were really cool yesterday. Did you know? After you had left, Yan Yan was so angry that her face was pale. If it wasn't for merciless Bing who helped her out, I think she would have tried to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. By the way, who was the woman that came for you yesterday? She was really pretty. Could she be a star? No, even a star isn't as pretty as her. Shi Xiu said with a face full of excitement. He would only make such an exaggerated expression with Yemo. Yemo smiled as he patted Shi Xiu's shoulders and said, I've slept the whole afternoon, and I'm hungry already. Let's go eat. Shi Xiu suddenly sighed and said, Yemo, to be honest, I'm concerned about you. Aren't you worried yourself at all? We're almost graduating, but you already had to retake the exams last semester. You probably can't even get a graduation certificate, much less a degree, and yet you still sleep every day, Sai. Yemo said in disagreement, Is there any use in worrying? If worrying were useful, I would worry every day. Put your mind at ease, I have my way. If you graduate and can't find a job, you can come to me. I'll be responsible for getting you a job and get you fed. Pff, never mind. What I want is not just a job that will get me fed. My relative says that he can help me find a job at a government department. I bet you are jealous. Let's go. I can already smell the aroma of Juwei restaurant. Shi Xiu quickly pulled Yemo into Juwei restaurant. Juwei restaurant was the most famous restaurant in Ninghai University. The dishes were excellent and had a particular taste. Although it wasn't as good as Westlake family's, Yemo still liked their style. Shi Xiu only had a $200 coupon, but that was enough for the two of them. Although Yemo was close with Shi Xiu, they barely had the chance to eat together. Yemo asked for another 2 bottles of white wine, and the two kept eating until 7 to 8 p.m. Shi Xiu was a lightweight, and the 2 bottles of wine were pretty much all consumed by Yemo. When Yemo took the tipsy Shi Xiu and left Juwei restaurant, he actually saw Zhang Wenxiao, who went to the toilet. Although it was just his back, how powerful were Yemo's eyes? He knew it was him already. He was attacked by this guy last time, and although he didn't suffer any losses, he remained very unsatisfied inside. Now that he saw this man again, how could he let him go? He hurriedly dumped Shi Xiu on the dorm bed before immediately coming back outside Juwei restaurant and waited. He estimated that this Zhang Wenxiao's family had some power, so when he would be teaching him a lesson, he had to cover his face. If it were only according to Yemo's will, he would have killed him straight away. But he also knew that if he murdered Zhang Wenxiao, he would most likely become the suspect number 1. Therefore, it would be best to beat him until he can't manage to live his own life. Yemo didn't wait very long before seeing Zhang Wenxiao leave Juwei restaurant speaking on the phone. Chapter 28. Stalking. Chapter 28. Stalking Zhang Wenxiao went in his BMW and drove towards a far-off place, unaware that Yemo was following him. Soon the car stopped as a 40 or so-year-old man who was carrying a woman rushed at the BMW while Zhang Wenxiao hurried out of the car and went to help him. What made Yemo surprised was that he knew the woman. The woman, carried by both Zhang Wenxiao and the other man, was Yun Bing, who was also known as Merciless Bing, Yemo's English teacher. Why would Yun Bing be waiting for Zhang Wenxiao here? Yemo was astonished, but he didn't keep it on his mind. It looked like Yun Bing was drunk or something and needed people to hold her. Under the dim yellow street light, Zhang Wenxiao quickly carried Yun Bing into his BMW. Although he didn't know what the relationship between Yun Bing and Zhang Wenxiao was, being carried into the car drunk like that was definitely not right. However, Yemo didn't have a good impression of Yun Bing and wouldn't care about what happened to her. Today, he was here to take care of Zhang Wenxiao. The BMW spewed exhaust gases and drove off while Yemo followed behind secretly. Luckily, they were in the city, and the speed limit wasn't high. Right now, Yemo's cloud shadow step was at a high enough level that he could keep up with the car. More than 10 minutes later, the BMW drove into a quiet district. However, Yemo couldn't go in from the main entrance. After making sure there were no cameras around, Yemo jumped over a wall into the small living district and kept his eyes on the BMW from a distance. He quickly saw the car stopping outside a building. Zhang Wenxiao and the other man hurriedly carried Yun Bing up the stairs, but Yemo could only watch from below as he was only in the first stage of qi gathering. If he was in stage 3, he could follow them with an invisibility art. However, if he followed now, he would be seen, and it wasn't suitable to teach Zhang Wenxiao a lesson in the stairways. It would be better inside. Yemo waited down there for some time, and before long, a light in a room on the 4th floor lit up. Yemo immediately knew where they went and didn't hesitate to climb up through the window, and soon he entered the lit-up room through the kitchen. "Young Master Chow, I am ready." Hearing that voice, Yemo knew this was the other man talking. "Start when I go on this woman. Remember to film it clearly and capture all the specifics, especially when she moans. I want all of it. I don't believe that she won't cooperate after all that. After Zhen Wenqiao's words, Yemo heard a ripping sound, like clothes being shred. So, these two want to gang rape Merciless Bing, and also want to record it. He wondered whether she had had a conflict with the two in the past, or if she had some incriminating evidence against them in her hands for the situation to be like that. Yi Mo originally thought the ripping move was done by Zhen Wenqiao, but when he kicked the door open, he found out the shredding movement was made by Yunbing herself. Yunbing's face was ruddy and steaming, and it was obvious that she was under the influence of some potent aphrodisiacs. She had already ripped off half the clothes in front of her chest, showing 2 snow-white balls that were firm and plump, and even Yemo was a bit phased after seeing them. "Who are you?" As Yemo kicked open the door, Zhen Wenqiao and the cameraman were immediately frightened. However, when they saw a single man walking in with a covered face, they immediately gasped a sigh of relief. Zhen Wenqiao was aware that the man behind him knew martial arts and was quite proficient at it. "Friend, what do you want to do? If you just want money, we don't need to cross paths, and we can let you play after we finish enjoying ourselves." This is a high-quality woman. Zhen Wenqiao was wary of Yemo as he was talking. At the same time, he was putting back on the clothes he was about to take off. "Human scum!" Yemo just spoke 2 words and kicked Zhen Wenqiao, whose hand was still on the button, when he was sent flying by Yemo, crashing into the wall. When he fell down, he immediately fainted. The middle-aged cameraman saw this masked person attacking with dexterity, so he immediately threw his camera aside and took out a knife from his waist, stabbing towards Yemo. His moves were reasonably agile. However, his opponent was Yemo. In Yemo's eyes, this guy was even worse than Fong Weiqing, who wanted to fight him in the park last time. He made 2 consecutive kicks and used only 1 move to send flying this person, who Zhen Wenqiao thought was quite powerful. While the middle-aged man flew, he sent the camera beside him flying into the ceiling and crashed, shattering into pieces. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man fell on top of Zhen Wenqiao. "Hold it, friend, do you know who he is? He is the son of Mayor Zheng. Aren't you afraid?" This middle-aged man was kicked to the ground and yet still wanted to threaten him. Yemo sneered and kicked this man on the head. He fainted promptly as if on command. Yemo looked at the room. On the wall hung a picture of Yunbing, and another one was of her carrying a little girl. He thought that this was Yunbing's room and that Zhen Wenqiao was really sinister. If he had done these things with Yunbing in her room and made it into a video, Yunbing would likely be forced to suicide or to comply with Wenqiao's every need. He wondered what Zhen Wenqiao wanted from Yunbing. It couldn't be just purely wanting to go in bed with her. Yemo didn't want to bother with these things and carried the unconscious middle-aged man and Zhen Wenqiao. He didn't want to teach them a lesson in her room, and Yunbing didn't look very appropriate. Just when Yemo walked to the door, Yunbing's moan sounded, and there was another ripping sound of clothes. Yemo turned around and saw Yunbing had stripped down to 3 spots that were barely covered. The almost completely nude Yunbing laying on the bed with her almost uncovered 3 spots and her pink translucent underwear made Yemo's heart beat really fast. However, Yemo immediately knew things weren't right. The aphrodisiac Yunbing was seemed to be too potent. He estimated that without sex, her body would probably be greatly damaged or even debilitated, and cursed at how evil Zhen Wenqiao was. Yemo looked at Yunbing's white yet ruddy-looking body and sighed. He dumped the 2 men outside and walked next to Yunbing's bed as he wanted to help her push out the remaining drug power. However, just when Yemo walked in front of the bed, he was bear-hugged by Yunbing like how a drowning person clutched to a wooden stump. The soft and aromatic body pushed into Yemo's arms, and Yemo uncontrollably felt aroused. Yunbing seemed to exhale a comfortable breath and scratched Yemo's back with her fingers. She kept pushing her body onto Yemo as though she was pushing herself inside Yemo. Yemo's heart was burning with fire, but he was already in the first stage of qi gathering. After the short temptation, He immediately reacted and palmed Yunbing's head. With the use of qi, a faint aroma of gas was pulled out of Yunbing's body. As Yemo continued to use qi to pull out the aphrodisiac component in Yunbing's body, Yunbing gradually settled down. After a long time, Yemo was full of sweat, but finally managed to push out the remaining components from her body. He was relieved and took down the black clothes to wipe the sweat from his head. However, Yunbing woke up coincidentally at this exact moment. Abruptly, she felt she was almost completely nude and opened her eyes in horror, seeing Yemo, who was wiping his sweat, and under embarrassment and rage, she fainted once again. Chapter 29. Ning Qingshue's Second Impression. Chapter 29. Ning Qingshue's second impression, Mo, was fatigued and didn't realize that Yunbing had already woken up once. He pulled a quilt over Yunbing's body and said to her, "You've been lucky today. With your attitude towards me, I didn't want to save you, but I'm in a good mood today." Yi Mo closed the door and once again carried the middle-aged man and Zhang Wenxiao and left. He stripped bare Zhang Wenxiao and the middle-aged man and beat them up. Then he kicked them till their private areas were busted before dumping them on the back seat of the car, stacked on top of each other. Then he drove the BMW away until he came to the Genesis Square and parked it in a frequented and conspicuous place. Before he left, he didn't forget to leave all the windows open. Yemo went out for the whole day while Ning Qingxue was getting a bit worried in the yard. She was planning to get the marriage certificate that day, but Yemo still hadn't returned. It was as though he had forgotten what he agreed to her. When Su Wei and Ning Qingxue saw each other in the morning, it was a bit awkward. Su Wei didn't know how Yemo found such a stunning girl like Ning Qingxue, and what this beautiful woman could be possibly thinking, living together with someone as poor as Yemo before marriage. That just goes to show that you really couldn't judge someone by their appearance. Although Yemo was quite a good person in Su Wei's impression, Ning Qingxue seemed to be way out of his league. Ning Qingxue's thoughts were similar to Su Wei's. She thought about why Su Wei was living together with Yemo, since he was known to have a problem concerning his more intimate life. However, she couldn't really ask this, and both of them thought they were in the right. Seeing that Su Wei had gone to work, Ning Qingxue felt uncomfortable staying in this unfamiliar yard by herself. However, she waited for a long time for Yemo to no avail. She saw there were many flowers cultivated in Yemo's yard. Originally, she thought it was Su Wei who was responsible, but they seemed to be planted on Yemo's side. Ning Qingxue looked at those flowers and discovered one of them with a silver grass, which seemed to be cared for very well. There were no flowers or grass nearby its spot and had a very large place all to itself. She walked around the yard for a while before going back to the room. Yemo's room was simple. Other than a bed, there was just a desk. The only thing she didn't understand was that there was a small box and a pot seemingly used to cook herbs. As for what was inside the box, Ning Qingxue didn't know and didn't have any desire to open it. She didn't like to invade other people's privacy. As for that peculiar pot, she didn't have the urge to look at it either. She suddenly felt that Yemo was different from what Li Mumei said about him, but at the same time similar to her description. This gave her an odd, uncanny feeling. She didn't know how Yemo knew Su Jingwen, but she seemed to have a good impression of him. Ning Qingxue thought about when she first saw Yemo dancing so flawlessly in synchronization with Su Jingwen, and when he gave a present to Su Jingwen. To her own surprise, she had felt uncomfortable, even perhaps a little jealous, watching the event unfold. She couldn't help but laugh at herself. Now, she saw with her own eyes that Yemo lived with the girl next door, and oddly, she felt very calm. Thinking about how Yemo took her $500,000 card without hesitation made her feel that Yemo fit Li Mumei's description perfectly, and just like that, her last remaining guilt towards Yemo was gone. Now, She could only wait until Yemo returned and get a marriage certificate with him. Then she would get Li Mumei to copy the certificate and release her private photos with Yemo to the public. If after all that, she still couldn't get rid of the Song family's pestering, she wouldn't know what to do anymore. When Yemo returned to the yard, Su Wei and Ning Qingxue had gone to sleep already. Seeing that both lights were turned off, he didn't go in but instead returned to the spot with the tree in the back of the yard and cultivated under it. Ning Qingxue heard the sound of the door and knew Yemo came back. She wondered if he came back so late each night, and after a while, she heard the sound of Su Wei's door. Time flew by quickly during cultivation. Yemo got up in the morning and finished a set of martial arts before washing himself. Then Su Wei got up and greeted Yemo. However, while she had a strange look on her face, she concealed it very soon. She hurriedly got ready to work and left. Ning Qingxue, who was also wide awake, heard the sound of Yemo and Su Wei in the yard, but resisted the urge to come out and walked out once Su Wei had left. Ning Qingxue saw Yemo caring for those flowers and confirmed her suspicions that they were really planted by him. A grown man actually liked to tend to these sort of things. She wondered if he was genuinely caring for the flowers or if it was his sexual orientations that were different than anticipated. "Oh, you're awake." Yemo turned his head and saw Ning Qingxue, but didn't add anything after that one sentence. After a long, awkward pause, he continued, "Why do you look so bad? Did you not eat yesterday?" Yemo saw the atmosphere was quiet between the two and thus took the initiative to start a conversation. However, he didn't think that Ning Qingxue shook her head and said, "I was not hungry, so I didn't eat yesterday." When Yemo heard that she didn't eat yesterday, he became speechless. If he didn't eat anything for a whole day, that would be okay for him as the qi would help him. But it wouldn't be the same for Ning Qingxue. She wasn't a cultivator. It wasn't surprising that her complexion was so bad. "Go wash first, we'll go eat later." Yemo only said a few words and went back to taking care of his precious silver heart grass. That was his priceless asset after all. After Ning Qingxue was ready, Yemo took her to the nearby road restaurant and got a few bowls of rice congee and some buns. Seeing the appetite of Yemo, who ate 2 bowls of congee and 5 buns, Ning Qingxue was full after barely eating half a bun and half a bowl of congee, despite not eating anything yesterday. "Why do you have to get married to M?" Yemo couldn't finish his words before being interrupted by Ning Qingxue again. "You don't need to ask that much. You just need to know that this is a deal between us, that's all." Ever since Yemo took that card from her without hesitation and she learned that he was living with Su Wei, Ning Qingxue felt her mood become worse. She doubted that the indifferent Yemo she saw during Su Jingwen's birthday party was a fake. If Yemo asked this question when they first saw each other, she would perhaps tell Yemo that she just wanted to rid herself of the Song family. But now, she didn't want to say anything to Yemo. She would pay the money, and Yemo would play his part. This was just a simple deal. After the deal, they would part ways, and the two wouldn't have nothing to do with each other anymore. As if noticing Ning Qingxue's change in tone, Yemo smiled faintly and let the subject go. He wasn't about to get emotionally attached to the woman. Even if it was a marriage, it didn't affect him at all. Getting a marriage certificate was an easy thing as they only needed their identity paper and a picture together. Yemo sighed about how complicated getting married was in his past life, but now he didn't think things would be so simple. However, he also noticed that divorce seemed to be even easier, so simple that the person didn't even need to come to divorce. Yemo didn't have the time to sigh. As soon as they collected their marriage certificate, Li Mumei came over and was going to help Yemo and Ning Qingxue take a few private photos. Chapter 30. Life After Marriage. Chapter 30. Life After Marriage. Why are you wearing pajamas? Yemo asked weirdly and wondered if they were getting some kinky photo shoot. As if understanding what Yemo thought, Li Mumei said, "If Qingxue is not scared, what are you scared of? Do you believe that you are the main character of the photo shoots?" Mumei, although Ning Qingshue's views of Yemo weren't excellent, Li Mumei's curt words made her feel quite awkward. After all, these photo shoots did make Ning Qingxue feel somewhat repulsed. Yi Mo wanted to reject, but when he saw Ning Qingxue, her morose eyes once again reminded him of Luoying, so in the end he still agreed. Perhaps in the depths of his heart, he subconsciously saw Ning Qingxue as his master Luoying, or used her as a way to think about Luoying. And plus, if Ning Qingxue wasn't scared, what should he be scared of? These sort of things shouldn't matter to him. He had nothing to lose, even if he helped. He put on his pajamas and leaned on the head of the bed together with Ning Qingxue. Yemo had a strange feeling. Ning Qingshue's faint virgin smell enchanted him. He subconsciously moved closer to Ning Qingxue and didn't seem to realize that this was only an act. Ning Qingxue also wore pajamas and lay beside Yemo. Her eyes frowned as if she was repulsed, but her manner returned to normal quickly. Yemo's body didn't have a smell that she disliked. Instead, it was really fresh. That faint manliness with an almost infant-like smell made Ning Qingxue a bit confused. She seemed to notice Yemo move over closer to her, but unconsciously, she actually didn't move away. Instead, she leaned together with Yemo, closing her eyes. Ning Qingshue's body was very soft and made Yemo feel very comfortable. But not long after he squeezed together with Ning Qingxue, he realized this was a performance, and there was still a Li Mumei on the side. It wasn't time for him to be aroused. Thinking about this, Yemo was alerted in his heart and wanted to move aside. However, Li Mumei said in surprise, "You too, don't tell me you're actually into the act. Hey, I've taken the pictures already. You can come down." "Really?" Ning Qingxue was suddenly shocked awake and immediately blushed. She really didn't know how she got into it and didn't dare to look at Yemo and Li Mumei. Instead, she nervously grabbed her coat and pulled it over her body. Yemo laughed and touched his nose as he put on his clothes as though no one was around. Then he left the room. "Mumei! Ning Qingxue didn't seem to know how to explain her actions just then. She didn't know why she would be attracted by Yemo and didn't push him away. "It's okay, I've got the pictures ready. I'll send them to Jingwen later and bring a copy back to Beijing. From now on, you should just live here by yourself for now, for a month or so. Then, things would be clear and concrete." "I'll come over and visit you frequently." Li Mumei then sighed and continued, "Luckily, Yemo has a particular condition. Otherwise, I think it would be really dangerous for you two to be together." Of course, Ning Qingxue knew what Li Mumei meant, but she didn't know how to argue against that. She even suspected that Yemo was a normal man. Otherwise, how could he sleep with Su Wei? Although she thought that, she was too embarrassed to say it out loud. However, she knew her feelings towards Yemo, regardless of whether Yemo was impotent. Mumei thought too much. That was just an accident. At that moment, there was only peace in her heart and nothing else. The next day, the greatest news wasn't the news of Yemo and Ning Qingshue's marriage. Instead, it was the discovery of two homosexuals on the Genesis Square, a couple who drove a BMW. But when the police intervened, they realized one of them was the vice mayor's son, and both of them were heavily injured. Obviously, someone was behind all this. Although Zhang Wenqiao and the other man were saved in time, they had become mentally disabled. Now, this matter was an unsolved case. After Li Mumei had left, Yemo's life returned to what it was before. He found out that as long as he didn't bring home food, Ning Qingxue basically wouldn't eat. He didn't know that when Ning Qingxue came out, she only brought a card and she gave that card to him. Now, she didn't have any money on her. After what happened last time, she was too embarrassed to call Li Mumei. Plus, Yemo took $500,000 from her. It wasn't much even if she ate with Yimo's money. If it was just Yimo alone, he didn't really care what he ate and didn't even mind if he didn't. However, Ning Qingxue was here, so he had to bring food for Ning Qingxue each day. However, after a few days, he discovered that Ning Qingxue ate very little of the food he brought home. He sighed. He knew that Ning Qingxue probably had some diet habits and wasn't used to eating takeaway food. Therefore, Yimo could only buy vegetables and cook the food himself. However, he only had 50,000 on him, and after buying herbs and some other daily items, he only had 20,000 remaining. Meanwhile, he looked at Ning Qingshue's card. He thought that she lived at his place and ate with his money, so it wouldn't matter if he used her card for some money. He wasn't looking to keep the remaining money by the end of the deal anyway, so he only needed it for necessities. However, what made Yimo disappointed was that he could not withdraw 5 cents, much less $500,000 from Ning Qingshue's card. There was no other reason but that the card was frozen. Although a lot of things didn't go successfully, there was something good, and that was that Ning Qingxue didn't dislike Yimo's cooking. She actually ate quite a lot each time, which made Yimo rest easier. Otherwise, if Ning Qingxue became fragile, as if a slight gust could topple her, that woman Li Mumei would probably become furious. Even though it didn't matter if she was furious, he was just scared that she would go to Ning High University and go on a rampage. Plus, he didn't have a bad impression towards Ning Qingxue, and even felt that she was decent. So he didn't want to see her starve either. Ning Qingxue was very strange. Although Yimo bought little amounts of vegetables home, when Yimo started cooking, she actually ate more. Perhaps because Yimo's cooking was suitable to her tastes. Only a week later, she found out that she was a bit fatter than before. On the other hand, what made Yimo the happiest was that his silver heart grass was finally mature and the seeds were ready to harvest. Yimo carefully took the 39 silver heart grass seeds and put them in a jade bottle he prepared beforehand. He didn't want to plant them in this yard anymore because he wasn't going to live here for 2 years. After things had been settled here, he was going to leave Ning Hai immediately, as he had the feeling that Ning Hai was no longer suitable for him to stay. After taking the 39 seeds, Yimo started to prepare this silver heart grass. It was a silver heart grass in perfect conditions, and utilizing it the best way possible was the key. He might even reach the second stage of qi gathering thanks to it. With the remaining $20,000, Yimo spent more than $10,000 buying the best medical materials he could find to make a bowl of soup with the silver heart grass. Ning Qingxue asked Yimo to bring her a few books from the library each time he went out. She rarely left his house and usually stayed in the yard reading books. When Yimo tended to his flowers, she also watched silently, and when Yimo made a herbal soup, she also watched without making a sound and never asking anything. Su Wei usually came back at night and left very early for work. Other than exchanging a few sentences with Yimo, she rarely encountered Ning Qingxue. This made her remember the time when Yimo first came. Yimo was like that as well and barely saw her. Yimo prepared the entire bucket of herbs to fit into a bowl of soup and was prepared to drink it that night when he cultivated. Yimo, I want to ask for your help. Other than borrowing some books, Ning Qingxue seldom spoke with Yimo, and actually this was the first time she took the initiative to talk to Yimo. Chapter 31. Helpless Blood Donation. Chapter 31. Helpless Blood Donation. What is it? Say it. I'm in a good mood today. Yimo had collected the seeds and turned the silver heart grass into a bowl of soup. He was indeed in a good mood today. Could you lend me $2,000? Ning Qingxue said calmly. To her. She thought Yimo wouldn't reject lending $2,000 to her because all of Yimo's money was hers before. I don't have the money. Yimo's good mood was slightly soured after Ning Qingshue's request. He only had $3,000 in his pocket right now, and Ning Qingxue just wanted to borrow $2,000 all of a sudden. Ning Qingxue was quite angry as she thought that he was so stingy. He took $500,000 from her and yet didn't even want to lend her $2,000. How could a person be like this? If you just remove the interest from the $500,000 I gave you, it would be enough for $2,000. You are a man and have many things to do in the future. How can you be like this? Ning Qingxue didn't think she would actually say what she thought in her heart, and it seemed to be very reasonable. When Yi Mo saw Ning Qingxue was starting to plead for herself, he hurriedly held his hands up and said, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" After, he took out a roll of notes and gave Ning Qingxue $2,000 as he said, "This is the only time. Next time, don't ask me for money because my money is hard-earned." Ning Qingxue was contemptuous, but eventually didn't rebuke Yi Mo. She thought that if his money didn't come easy, then no one's money came easy. He only needed to lend her a place to live, and he made $500,000. The reason Ning Qingxue wanted to borrow $2,000 was because she didn't have any money on her and was out of phone credit. Plus, she had to buy some feminine products. This made her very uncomfortable. That night, Yi Mo waited until Su Wei and Ning Qingxue went to sleep before walking to the tree in the backyard. He finished the soup in one gulp and started to cultivate. When the potent medicine blasted into Yi Mo's chest, he controlled the direction of his qi to rapidly change the tenacity and width of his meridians. Yi Mo was overwhelmed with joy as he didn't think that one silver heart grass had such potent medicinal power. It looked like there was hope for him in reaching the second stage of qi gathering. After 4 hours, the cultivation essence in Yi Mo's body started increasing rapidly. However, he soon felt that something wasn't right. When the cultivation essence in his body increased to a certain degree, it stopped and instead started to burn his meridians. Yi Mo was shocked. If this were to continue, he would truly become useless. He was wondering what was going on when the burning sensation and the bursting feeling in his meridians grew more intense, and in the spur of the moment he could only bid his wrist spew. The heat that had nowhere to go rushed to his wrist as hot blood spewed out from it. For now, Yi Mo was relieved. Luckily, he thought of this idea abruptly, otherwise he would have been doomed. It seemed that he shouldn't have drunk all of it in one gulp. This medicinal soup that he made didn't have a few spirit grass from the original recipe. He had to use normal herbs to replace them, and therefore there were side effects. After the burning sensation was appeased, Yi Mo immediately cultivated to heal the wound. Although he suddenly lost blood, Yi Mo had reached the tertiary stage of the first stage of qi gathering. There was such a breakthrough the first time he cultivated, and Yi Mo felt that the medicinal powers hadn't been exhausted. Perhaps if he kept cultivating, he would even reach stage 2. However, on the second day, just when Yi Mo finished his breakfast and was ready to go to school, he found that the scorching feeling in his body was present once again. He felt bad. Would he have to release all of his blood again? It made his heart ache to see all of this blood being released. But this couldn't overwhelm Yi Mo. He just went straight to the hospital to sell his blood. He didn't know how much of his blood was taken away until finally the qi in his body calmed down. He gasped a sigh of relief. When he arrived at the school, he didn't go to the library and instead went to find a place to cultivate. These few days were crucial. He had to completely digest the medical liquid in order not to waste it. The next few days, Ning Qingxue had been in contact with Li Mumei every day. She didn't dare to think about the Ning family that was in pandemonium. Although there was also the news of her marriage with Yi Mo in Ninghai, it was far less heated compared to in Beijing. The only thing that comforted Ning Qingxue was that ever since her news appeared on websites and newspapers, the Song family seemed to have given up and didn't bring up her matter with Song Shawan again. In these few days, Yi Mo lived a life filled with joy and pain. His cultivation was improving every day, but he had to go donate blood to the hospital each day. Although the money he earned from blood donations wasn't much, it was still a source of income. The 6th night after he drank the soup, Yemo was cultivating when he suddenly heard a few cracks in his body. It was as though something was blasted open. His body started to feel free and comfortable. The remaining medicinal powers in his body had been all used up. His cultivation essence increased by many folds, and his spirit sense was able to reach out. He was finally at the second stage of qi gathering now. That really wasn't easy. He didn't need to go to the hospital and suffer again. At this moment, Yemo almost wanted to get up and yell, but he knew it was midnight. If he were to scream at that moment, people would think that he was a madman. But he really couldn't express the joy in his heart. The next day, Yemo bought some breakfast for Ning Qingxue and got ready to leave for school. He wanted to leave a few medical pills for Shixiu. Since he was stage 2, it meant that he was going to leave soon. Shixiu was his friend, so before he left Ninghai, he was going to make a few medicinal pills in case of emergency. Originally, Yemo thought that after he had married Ning Qingxue and had released some of their photos taken together, there would be trouble for him. Yet, surprisingly, after almost half a month, he didn't encounter any trouble. This made him gradually relaxed. Yemo, Ning Qingxue, stopped him the moment Yemo was about to exit the door. As soon as Yemo heard this, he knew it wasn't going to be good. Last time she stopped him, he lost $2,000. What would it be this time? However, Ning Qingxue had called to him, and he couldn't just pretend he didn't hear it. He turned his head towards Ning Qingxue. She was still as beautiful as a goddess. The only difference was her physique a bit more plump. It seemed that his cooking during these periods of time was responsible for it. If a stranger were here, he would have thought that she came for a holiday and not seeking asylum. What? Yemo was forlorn. Seeing Yemo's helpless face, Ning Qingxue didn't feel happy. Am I not a match for you? Even if it was a fake wedding, I could still be a match for someone like you, she thought sadly. But luckily, her personality was indifferent. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to stay all by herself at Yemo's place for half a month. I have a classmate coming, and she is a journalist. You should know the purpose. Although I really don't want to go eat with her, I'm still under the scrutiny of other people. Could you come to eat with my classmate and I tonight? Ning Qingxue's face returned to her previous calm. I know how to cook, so why going out to eat? Yemo's first thought was that cooking at home would save money. You! Ning Qingxue shook her head in disbelief. It wasn't that she needed her face. She just wanted to make sure their couple life was more realistic in other people's eyes. Okay, I'll come tonight, Yemo said weakly and turned to leave. Chapter 32. Embarrassed, Merciless Bing. Chapter 32. Embarrassed, merciless Bing Yunbing hadn't been to school during this period of time. She only remembered that night, after leaving the school. She wanted to buy something from the supermarket. However, on the way, she met a former classmate who appeared to have bought 2 bottles of drink and gave her one. Although she didn't want to associate much with him, he was too enthusiastic for her to reject and even helped her open the bottle. Then, she drank a few mouthfuls from the bottle and said a few words before leaving. But then her head grew dizzy. Yunbing wasn't usually that naive, since she had already been independent in society for many years. But this situation still occurred. She immediately knew there was a problem with the drink her schoolmate gave her. Yunbing wanted to scream, but found out that she was getting dizzier and couldn't even yell. She didn't know what happened later on. Why did she wake up to see Yemo? Was Yemo conspiring with the schoolmate against her? Yunbing's first thought was to report to the police and get the police to apprehend Yemo. But later, she checked herself and discovered that she wasn't sexually exploited, neither was there anything missing in her home. The only noticeable thing was the broken door. Thinking about how Yemo was still so young, Yunbing sighed and let him go. However, she hated him in her heart. She just didn't know how Yemo knew that schoolmate of hers. However, when Yunbing checked more carefully, she found signs of fighting and even a camera that was smashed to pieces. Were they fighting over who went on her first? Thinking about this, Yunbing was angry and embarrassed at the same time. She had already decided to go to the school next day and ask Emo exactly what happened. But the news she saw the second day made her decide not to ask Emo. This was because the second day she saw on the news that there were 2 men stripped nude and beaten into idiots who were left on the Genesis Square. Although it was pixelated, Yunbing still felt this thing was weird. Yunbing then searched the internet for news and immediately saw on some small websites that the 2 people who were stripped nude were actually Zhang Wenxiao and her former schoolmate that drugged her. Yunbing immediately thought of Emo and even suspected that Emo did this. No matter what, Yunbing felt satisfied that this former schoolmate of hers was beaten till he was dumb. She wasn't sure if Emo did this, but even if he did, she wouldn't tell him off. However, Emo wanted to take advantage of her, which made her hate him for it. As for why Emo didn't do anything to her in the end, she knew clearly it was because he didn't have the ability to. But why would Emo be in her room? And how was that schoolmate of hers beaten into an idiot? She couldn't think it through, and therefore left the matter festering at the back of her mind. So that day, Yunbing applied for leave for half a month before returning to the school. However, she didn't think that the first person she saw back at school was Emo. Emo just finished cultivating and was ready to find Xiao. That was when he saw Yunbing walking into the school. Seeing Yunbing, he couldn't help but recall that night when Yunbing was nude and remembered her massive, perky chest. Seeing Emo, Yunbing's anger immediately boiled up, and Emo was staring at her with such eyes, making her angrier. Just thinking about how her naked body was seen by this guy made her really angry. Emo, come over. Although Yunbing's tone was calm, the anger under the calm tone was undeniable. Emo didn't think that Yunbing had discovered him that night and walked calmly in front of her as he said, "Teacher Yun, what's the matter?" Yunbing didn't speak and just took him to a far-off place in the school. After walking for a while, Emo felt something wasn't right. Could she have found out it was him that night? This wasn't possible. Yunbing was always unconscious, and he kept his mask on. How could Yunbing know it was him? Seeing that there was no one nearby, Yunbing asked Emo with a pale face, "Looks good, doesn't it?" "What looks good? The scene here is average?" Emo suddenly had a bad feeling and hurriedly changed the topic. Suddenly, Yunbing raised her hand and tried to slap Emo across the face without any warning. Even if Emo weren't alert of Yunbing, she wouldn't have been able to connect her slap. Emo grabbed Yunbing's wrist and said coldly, "Teacher Yun, if you don't have anything to say, I'm leaving. If you dare to try to hit me again, then don't blame me for not reacting then, and I will make Ninghai University like the place where you take a shower." After responding to her gesture, Emo turned to leave. "Emo, you shameless person!" Seeing that Emo turned to leave without hesitation, Yunbing immediately swore. It was completely different to her normal cold attitude. However, Emo didn't pay attention to her and was nowhere to be seen soon. Although Yunbing was called Merciless Bing, she couldn't help but cry thinking about what Emo did to her. After some while, she rubbed her sore red eyes and left. After Yunbing had left, another girl popped out not far in the distance. She stared at Yunbing's back in disbelief as she muttered to herself, "I didn't think that Emo would even harass teachers. He really is filthy to the bones." Emo was angry and didn't have the mood to go to the classroom to find Xiao. Instead, he just left the school. He really shouldn't have taken the extra move to save her. He saved her, and yet she was still like this. "Oh, Emo, you're back." Emo opened the door to the yard, and Ning Qingxue walked over like a little bird as she grabbed his arm. Emo raised his head to see that there was a tall and slim woman behind her. She was about the same age as Ning Qingxue and had long silky hair. Her eyes were very bright, which seemed to be able to talk as they scrutinized Emo, and appeared mature and astute. Yemo, let me introduce my friend. This is my schoolmate, Zhou Lei, and she came to Ning Hai just to see me. Zhou Lei, this is my husband, Yemo. Ning Qingxue introduced, hospitably. Only Ning Qingxue knew that if it weren't because she wanted everyone to realize she was Yemo's wife as soon as possible, she wouldn't even want to be socializing with other people. Zhou Lei was a journalist, and obviously, Ning Qingxue knew of her intentions to come to see her. Oh, hello, Miss Zhou. Yemo reached out his hand and shook it with Zhou Lei. Hello, Mr. Yi, you may call me Zhou Lei, and I'll just call you Yemo as well. Zhou Lei's smile was very professional. Zhou Lei felt weird. She had heard of Yemo, and also guessed like the people outside that this marriage was made to avoid the Song family. Furthermore, seeing their living place further consolidated her opinion. But now that she saw Yemo's calm manner, this was the first time she doubted her judgment. Qingxue, since your friend came, you should have called me. Oh, right, Zhou Lei, you still haven't eaten, right? Let's go and fill our stomachs first. Zhou Lei, I'm sorry, this place is a bit shabby. Qingxue had been suffering a little with me, but this is only temporary. I definitely won't let her suffer much longer. Yemo didn't have the time to waste with Ning Qingxue's schoolmate. He wasn't in a good mood, he just wanted to eat and shoo off this woman who was here to extract information. Chapter 33. The Person Who Sells Fake Medicine. Chapter 33. The person who sells fake medicine, Ning Qingxue, heard Yemo call her Qingxue so casually while she was also holding Yemo's arm. At that moment, she even doubted if she had really become Yemo's wife. How did that feeling come so suddenly? She remembered that the day when she wore pajamas for Li Mumei's photo session, she seemed to be so immersed into the act. Thinking about that day, Ning Qingxue quickly pulled out her arm from Yemo's arm as her heart was still beating quickly. Each time she made physical contact with Yemo, she discovered that she was unable to retain that calm state and was even more astonished by the fact that she liked that soothing feeling. Yemo seemed to have something on him that she wanted to pursue. It was like an indescribable feeling of serenity and longing, but it was a bit ethereal at the same time, that attracted her like a moth to a flame. So the only thing she could do was to constantly remind herself what sort of a person Yemo was. Zhou Lei saw Yemo's comfort and Ning Qingxue's leaning on him, as well as her faint blushes on her face, which made her doubt herself even more. Is Ning Qingxue really in love with Yemo, and the two married each other due to love and not something else? Let's go. Yemo saw Zhou Lei was still lost in thought and reminded her of the reality. He didn't have any good impressions towards this woman who liked to invade other people's privacy. The three were each thinking of different things as they left the yard. In a place not far from their residence was a relatively large restaurant called Glamorous Cuisine and was a star restaurant. Ning Qingxue didn't want to go too far, so she pointed at Glamorous Cuisine and said to Yemo, Yemo, I think this Glamorous Cuisine looks pretty good. Let's go there. No, the food there is too expensive. Before Yemo finished his words, Ning Qingxue was already outraged. Yemo, why do you need so much money for? We would only spend at most $1,000 at this restaurant. Ning Qingxue wasn't someone who liked showing off, but Yemo kept $500,000 and was being stingy with her schoolmate about going to a restaurant. Although she didn't really like this schoolmate either, it was still a schoolmate, and she was still a member of the Ning family. Yemo was bringing too much shame to her. Zhou Lei looked at Yemo in surprise. It was her first time seeing someone so stingy over a meal, and this was in front of his own wife and her schoolmate. However, Ning Qingxue's admiration of him didn't seem to be fake. Seeing that Ning Qingxue was still going to say something else, Yemo was angry, but he wasn't someone with a narrow heart. He knew that if he got angry now, the show between him and Ning Qingxue would have been for nothing. He was going to leave Ning Hai soon, so there was no point in disputing a woman. Thinking about this, he hurried to say, "Okay, have it your way. Let's go here to eat today." Although he said that he was depressed in his heart, he only had $3,000 in his pockets, and this was money earned from him selling his blood. Although the blood would have been wasted even if he didn't donate them, he still didn't want to use the money he acquired from selling blood to invite a woman whom he didn't like to dinner. Yi Mo had made his decision. After a few days, he would leave Ning Hai immediately. As for Ning Qingshue's matter, he had already helped out enough. He needed to find a stable place to plant his silver heart grass. He already deeply understood that someone without a background like him would be meat on the chopping board in society if he didn't have enough power. The dinner was relatively pleasant. Although Zhou Lei didn't get what she wanted, she could already tell the Yi Mo and Ning Qingshue's expenditure views were quite different. But from how Yi Mo was so stingy with money, she was further assured that Yi Mo was really living life with Ning Qingxue. From how Yi Mo used cash and not a card to pay for the meal, she could tell Yi Mo really wasn't living a wealthy life. Yi Mo was the most unhappy. This meal cost him $3,000. He even had to take out the 5s and 10s on him. If Ning Qingxue didn't have to order the $2,000 bottle of wine, this meal wouldn't cost that much. Although he drank most of the red wine, he was still unhappy. He knew Ning Qingxue did this on purpose. She gave him a credit card whose account was frozen, and yet she was still so cocky. Yi Mo almost threw the card at her to tell her to get the money herself. No wonder they say the people that are hated are also pitiful at the same time. Wasn't Ning Qingxue someone like that? After the meal, Zhou didn't stay and instead chose to bid them farewell. Perhaps it was because she saw Yi Mo using 5s and 10s to pay, but she wondered if he were showing her that he had no money or something like that. When Ning Qingxue and Yi Mo went back, they weren't as intimate as before. Ning Qingxue didn't want to talk to Yi Mo. She felt that Yi Mo had made her lose face today. Although she didn't really care about these things, Yi Mo paid with cash instead of his card, and even though she did intentionally order the red wine, but in the end, he drank it all by himself. Yi Mo didn't want to talk either. This dinner cost him more than $3,000. Now he only had $20 remaining in his pocket. In the following days, if Yi Mo didn't go out to find work, he wouldn't even have money for food. Perhaps he really had to sell blood to get food, but it was impossible for him to do that in the long term. His situation wasn't that bad. Although the price he was paid for selling blood was the same as everyone else, Yi Mo believed his blood had better quality than others. He felt he was losing out with this price. Yi Mo's dishes were getting simpler and simpler. Although Qingxue wasn't fussy about food, she looked down on stingy people like Yi Mo. That night, Yi Mo carried his medical kit out. He didn't think that he had to go out to the night market ahead of schedule since Ning Qingxue came. Originally, he thought that he didn't need to do this anymore after curing the purple coral poison of the old man. But now he walked on this path once again. However, what made Yi Mo disappointed was that even if he had his stall set up in the busy streets of Ning, do walking street for 2 days, he didn't get even one person to do business with. Instead, he was even kicked by the city management once. Yi Mo barely went to Ninghai University. Firstly, he didn't want to see Yunbing. Secondly, there was nothing he could learn there anymore. He originally planned to give a few medicinal pills he made to Shixiu, but he had applied to leave for a week due to family issues. Although Ning Qingxue basically hadn't been talking to Yi Mo, she still saw what Yi Mo was doing. Her father had called her and told her not to worry. Even if he, Ning Zhongfei, were kicked out of the Ning family, he would not sell his daughter, especially to that demon from the Song family. Her father's words made Ning Qingxue feel more assured. Her parents already went to Beijing to settle things with the Ning family. 2 days after that, they would come to Ninghai and take her away. Ning Qingxue saw the pot Yi Mo left in the corridor to boil herbs, and her contempt towards Yi Mo gradually started to fade. What was the relationship between him and her? This was just a deal. She gave him $500,000, and that money was his. If he didn't want to spend money, that was his problem. Why should she be disappointed in this type of person? After thinking through this, Ning Qingxue seemed to feel better. Although he was very stingy, he still bought some vegetables home and cooked every day. Yi Mo carried his little case out again. Su Wei still didn't come back. She didn't know whether or not if it was because Yi Mo and Su Wei were living together that Ning Qingxue tried to avoid facing Su Wei. As for what was her mentality, she didn't know. Perhaps it was to avoid awkwardness. Regardless of whether it was real or fake, she and Yi Mo were still husband and wife. The husband slept in the room of the woman next door. Even if they were fake couples, she didn't want to face that woman. Thinking about how she would leave here the day after tomorrow and probably never come back for her life, there was an unknown yet faint melancholy that rose in her heart. She knew this wasn't because of Yi Mo, but because of other reasons. Ning Qingxue walked out of her room for the first time. Perhaps she also wanted to see the place where she had lived for more than 20 days looked like. Mingdu Street was probably the most popular place at Ningdu District at night, and Ning Qingxue had unknowingly walked here already. The place was filled with people, red lights and green lights. There were all sorts of snacks and small tokens sold everywhere. There were also many small businesses and stalls. One stall had golden cakes that looked enticing and was steaming with air. Ning Qingxue, who never ate roadside stall snacks, couldn't resist the temptation and bought one golden cake with $2. She bit down lightly. It was sticky and soft. Come and have a look at a recipe passed down from the ancestor. It can cure all sorts of diseases, headaches, fever, external and internal injuries, short-sightedness. There are only things you can't think of, but nothing I can't cure. This promoting almost made Ning Qingxue laugh. From the sounds of this person, he could cure anything. Ning Qingxue subconsciously looked up at the person selling the fake medicine and was stunned. Wasn't this Yi Mo? Although he wore shades and a duck-shaped hat, Ning Qingxue could tell it was him from the first glance. Plus, there was that signature chest beside him. Ning Qingxue always didn't know what was inside it, but now she did. It was a medical case. Chapter 34. Young Master of the Song Family. Chapter 34. Young Master of the Song Family. Ning Qingxue sighed. Although $500,000 wasn't much for her, it should be quite a lot for Yi Mo. Yet, he still wasn't satisfied as he had to come out to cheat people and actually proclaimed that he could cure any disease. If he were so powerful, the world wouldn't need hospitals anymore. City management is here, someone called out. Many stall owners immediately started packing up their things and left. Ning Qingxue stared at Yi Mo, and as expected, Yi Mo packed up his things helplessly. However, he didn't run away hastily like the other stall owners. Instead, he packed up his things slowly and left. Although she didn't get to see Yi Mo scrambling away, she still got to see Yi Mo leave dejectedly, and this gave Ning Qingxue a sense of satisfaction. This is what you get for cheating people, she thought to herself. When Ning Qingxue returned to the yard, Yi Mo had already come back. He looked once at Ning Qingxue and didn't say anything. Ning Qingxue would, of course, not bother to talk to him either. She was wondering whether she should tell Su Wei what sort of person he was before she left. His business didn't succeed, and he was kicked away by city management. Yi Mo was already sick of the days in Ninghai and wanted to leave. As for Ning Qingxue's business, he had already helped her enough. He would say goodbye to her tomorrow and leave. He didn't need to go to Ninghai University, but he still had to leave a letter behind for Shixiu. When Su Wei had already gone to sleep, Yi Mo started to cultivate. Young Master Wen, there is half an hour remaining before we arrive at Ninghai. Where shall we go first? A BMW was heading towards Ningfeng Highway at high speed, while the driver was asking a youth that was younger than 30 in the back seat. The youth had a pale face and a pair of eagle eyes. His face was rather long and his hair perfectly combed. Hearing the driver's words, the youth just took out a cigarette, while the big man sitting beside him quickly took out a lighter and lit up the cigarette for him. F.A., did you finish the task I gave you? The youth sucked on the cigarette and asked. Yes, young Masterwin. I left no traces, the bulky man replied. The youth inhaled the cigarette once again and stayed silent for some time before continuing. We came from Hefeng, just so that Grandpa and the people of the Ning family wouldn't be suspicious. If we go according to our original plan and stay one night in Ninghai, something might happen, so we might as well just abduct that woman. This saves me from always thinking about her. I will let this be *TCH. Know what regret truly is. Saying this, the initially calm youth was angered such that veins began to emerge from his clenched fist. He raised his hand and threw away the barely used cigarette. The robust man called F.A. quickly picked it up and threw it out the window. That useless man is called Yemo, right? The youth gradually calmed down. Ever since the beginning, no one dared to reject him, Song Shaowen. He didn't think a mere Ning Qingxue would dare to reject him. And not just that, but she actually got married to another man, and they were even living together. This was slapping him across his face and his pride. If Song Shaowen could endure something like that, he wouldn't be Song Shaowen. If it wasn't for his grandfather who stopped him, he would have come to Ninghai ages ago. This time, he changed routes at Hefeng before coming back to Ninghai. Yes, young Masterwin, the useless man, is called Yemo. The two did, in fact, sleep together. I saw some pictures on some websites. And they seem to love each other a lot, the driver hurriedly said. Song Shaowen, who had already calmed down, immediately grew pale with rage again. He said coldly, I will make this Yemo watch me and endure the torture when I show him how I sleep with that *TC. Then, Yemo, right? We'll take him away. Isn't there a valley at Yanning Highway? We'll break his limbs and drop him from there. He's too weak to fight over my women. It was already 1 a.m., and Yemo finished one big cycle and 12 small cycles of cultivation. He wasn't going to cultivate anymore. He was leaving tomorrow and wanted to find a place to sleep. The stone block next to the flower pots was where he usually slept after cultivation. Just when Yemo laid down, a metal hook landed onto the wall as 3 figures quickly climbed over and jumped into the backyard. Although Song Shaowen had a pale face, his wall-flipping movements were agile. This is where that useless trashy Yemo lives, right? Which room is he sleeping in with Ning Qingxue, the *TCH? The pale-faced Song Shaowen asked as soon as he dropped to the ground. This is where Yemo lives indeed, but he isn't a useless trash, a sudden voice was heard. Song Shaowen wasn't able to react to the first half, but he immediately turned his body to face Yemo for the second half of the sentence. After some time, he was full of shock and asked, Who are you? At the same time, the people behind Song Shaowen also saw Yemo. They all looked at him in shock and were tense and alert. I am Yemo. Do you want me or my wife? Yemo said calmly. You are Yemo? Wang Chuan, F.A., break his legs. I want to see how this useless trash is so different that he could make that bitch willing to sleep with Hai. Before Song Shaowen finished a sentence, he discovered that his wrist was held tightly by an iron-like palm. If you want to fight, that's fine, but I will crush your wrist first. Try me if you don't believe me. Yemo didn't want to fight here in case, he alerted Su Wei. He knew that these people probably came for Ning Qingxue, but Su Wei was innocent. Looking at Song Shaowen, Wang Chuan, and F.A. immediately knew that their young master was in Yemo's hands, so they all stopped their movements. Tell me, what's your name, trash? Yemo used a little strength on his hands and Song Shaowen almost screamed out. Sweat quickly emerged on his forehead. I am Song Shaowen, from the Song family of Beijing. I didn't come here for you. I came here for Ning Qingxue. Release me immediately, or your Yi family, or you, Yimo, will die nameless and shameful. Song Shaowen originally wanted to say that he was going to do something to the Yi family, but he realized that the Yi family was also a member of the 5 great families of Beijing, just like his own. They weren't afraid of the Song family, so he changed his words to Yi Mo. Oh, so that's it. However, your family is just a pile of trash in my eyes, so I'm not concerned at all. Ning Qingxue is my wife, and you dare to come find her. Are you deaf or are you blind? Now, Yimo used some more strength on his hands, and Song Shaowen finally had to cry out in pain. Yimo, we can talk, there's no need to fight. Wang Chuan said, seeing the situation was going in the wrong way. You drove here, right? Yimo suddenly asked something completely irrelevant. Yes, Wang Chuan replied helplessly, as he didn't understand why Yimo would suddenly ask something irrelevant. Yimo nodded. In that case, we will discuss outside. Yimo wanted to leave, and since these few people drove here, it would be the perfect opportunity to take him along. It would save him the cost of traveling. Seeing Yimo take the initiative to go outside, Song Shaowen's 2 henchmen were obviously willing to. They initially thought that they couldn't fail this plan, but they would have never expected Yimo to be this strong. This was completely out of their expectations, and now the matter had gone out of their control. What took Song Shaowen and the other 2 by surprise was that Yimo actually released Song Shaowen's wrist and just stared at the trio. Song Shaowen and his 2 henchmen looked at each other and nodded, thinking that Yimo really was a useless trash. His brain didn't seem to be functioning properly. The guy called a FA first went over the wall and leaped out. Then Yimo also jumped over, with Song Shaowen and Wang Chuan closely following behind them. Song Shaowen was prepared to tell the other 2 to attack as soon as he reached the other side of the wall. However, he didn't even have the chance to land that the scene in front of them made them drop their jaws in shock. Chapter 35. Yimo didn't come back. Chapter 35. Yimo didn't come back. It was because they saw a fallen FA sprawled on the ground, with Yimo stepping victoriously on his chest while staring coldly at him and Wang Chuan. He couldn't understand how Yimo subjugated FA in a matter of milliseconds. FA was his best henchman. However, Song Shaowen couldn't think anymore because before he even landed on the ground, Yimo flew over and kicked him. Crack! Song Shaowen's leg bones were broken by Yimo's kick. Arg! Song Shaowen immediately broke out in cold sweat. Wang Chuan shivered as he stared at Yimo's flying kick. What sort of person is he? His moves are so horrific. He is definitely a tough brick. Get into the car! Yimo's murderous eyes made Wang Chuan shiver. He didn't dare to resist and quickly climbed in. What made him grow numb with fear was that Yimo was able to carry Song Shaowen and FA, one in each hand, with him effortlessly and followed behind him. Song Shaowen was in so much pain that he almost fainted. If he had another chance, he would rather be sworn at than come face to face with this demon called Yimo. Everyone else was used to call Shaowen a demon, but Song Shaowen himself had just realized that the true demon was Yimo, who pretended to be weak. When he tortured people, at least he had thoughts in his mind and expressions on his face. But when Yimo broke his leg, it was as though it was something as simple as stepping on an ant. His eyes didn't even blink, much less betray any expression. The car wasn't far away, only a few hundred meters away. Song Shaowen was used to choose small roads to park on so that he wouldn't be seen by others. Besides, it was 2 a.m., there was no one on the streets, so these few people went into the BMW unimpeded. Yimo dumped Song Shaowen and FA on the back seat and took all their cash. Then he sat in the seat beside the driver, saying, "Drive to Guilin." Guilin was the intersection between China and a few other small countries. This place was in the mountains and didn't have many people. This was perfect for Yi Mo's cultivation. Plus, even if people found out he killed Song Shaowen, it was extremely hard to try to capture him there. What Guilin? Wang Chuan was shocked. Guilin was almost 1,000 km from Ninghai. How could they drive over there? No bullsh *t, just drive. Yi Mo ordered, making Wang Chuan gulp down the words. He could only quickly start up the BMW and rapidly disappear from the range of Ninghai City. When the car drove for an hour or so, Yi Mo suddenly remembered that his little medical case was still in the corridor of the room. However, if he went back to get it now, it would probably become dawn, so he abandoned the idea. There were only some soup, pills, a letter, and some miscellaneous things. Not only was Song Shaowen depressed, but Fa and Wang Chuan were also humbled and dejected. It was usually them who taught people lessons, but today not only were they taught a lesson by the supposed useless trash Mo, but they had also been robbed of their money. Young Master Mo, it is my fault to have wronged you this time, but I think you know the power of the Song family. If something were to happen to me, you would never be able to escape. But if you are willing to let me go, I won't mistreat you any further. Song Shaowen started to soften and beg for mercy. He felt this Yi Mo was a fierce character, far fiercer than him. But before he finished his words, slap, slap, Yi Mo slapped twice Song Shaowen hard before slowly saying, "Stop bullsh *ting in front of me. It would be to your benefit if your Song family didn't mess with me. If they did, I'd erase their name from Beijing. Yi Mo will do as I say, but perhaps you won't get the chance to see it." "You!" Song Shaowen spat out 2 teeth and was shaking. It was unknown if he was shaking out of anger or fear. But this time, Song Shaowen was really scared. From Yi Mo's words, it seemed as though Yi Mo was going to take his life. Although he didn't believe Yi Mo would dare to, he only had one life after all. If regrets were of any use, he would have done it thousands of times already. After another hour or so, Yi Mo looked ahead at the highway wrapped precariously around the tall mountain and thought to himself, "It's almost dawn. If he pushed the car off the cliff here, it would be the most suitable idea. He wasn't really going to get this car to drive him to Guilin. That would be asking to die." Thinking about this, Yi Mo saw a camera far away. He suddenly bowed down and pulled on the wheel. Wang Chuan, who was still thinking on how to alert the police, didn't expect Yi Mo to duck his body and turn his wheel so suddenly. The vehicle had a sudden big turn and charged off the highway, falling down the cliff. The moment the car started plummeting, Yi Mo kicked open the door and used his wind-controlling technique to glide to the wall of the cliff. Sticking closely to it, he had to be in the 3rd stage of qi gathering to be able to utilize the wind-controlling technique to its full potential. But Yi Mo was only in the 2nd stage now, so he had difficulty using it. However, it was enough for him to save his life. The BMW fell off the cliff, and after a short moment, a loud explosion sounded, and a swirl of fire erupted. Yi Mo was relieved. He was still thinking that if the car didn't burn, he would have to go down and do it himself. But he didn't think the car would so obediently burn by itself. Yi Mo carefully avoided the cameras and went into the forest, quickly disappearing into the night. Ning Qingxue got up in the morning. Su Wei had already gone to work, but what made her curious was that Yi Mo didn't buy breakfast for her that morning. She also didn't see Yi Mo, and this made her unhappy. Last time, she just brought a schoolmate for dinner. But in the end, not only was the food quality had decreased, but now she didn't even get breakfast. Even if she spent $2,000 for a bottle of red wine, the red wine was drunk all by him anyway. Luckily, she was leaving 1 day later. Otherwise, she had this indescribable repulsion each time she saw Yi Mo. Sometimes, one couldn't just rely on their first impression. After all, other people's opinions weren't formed from thin air. However, What made Ning Qingxue disappointed was that she still didn't see Emo at noon. Suddenly, she realized that she had become overly dependent on Emo. If Emo didn't come back, would she not eat? Since nobody from the Song family came to bother her, Ning Qingxue did feel a lot more relieved, and soon she was going to leave Beijing with her parents, which made her feel even better. After lunch, Ning Qingxue suddenly looked at Emo's flower pots. It seemed that they hadn't been managed for more than 10 days. Some flowers had even died. However, Ning Qingxue discovered that the one especially taken care of by Emo with a silver color had disappeared. Ning Qingxue suddenly felt annoyed and wanted to call Li Mumei, but her phone suddenly ringed. Qingxue, I have great news for you. Did you know, last night around 4 a.m., Song Shaowen's car fell off a cliff at Fongjin Highway. Song Shaowen and his 2 henchmen who were in the car all died. Now you can relax. No one will come to bother you ever again. I'll come and pick you up tomorrow. Li Mumei's joyful voice made Ning Qingxue feel like she was dreaming. After a long time, she finally hung up the phone. She still couldn't believe that the demon in her dreams had died, and she was relieved. Ning Qingxue let out a long sigh of relief. Her first instinct was to go into the room and take out her marriage certificate with Emo, so when he came back she could divorce him. This afternoon must have been the longest afternoon for Ning Qingxue. Emo, who usually came back early to cook, still didn't come back at 8 p.m. However, Su Wei came back from work. This was the first time Su Wei came back from work to see Ning Qingxue, not in her room, but waiting outside. However, she didn't see Emo. You are Su Wei, right? Ning Qingxue said hesitantly. Chapter 36. It should be by Emo. Chapter 36. It should be by Emo. Su Wei nodded. Yeah, did Emo told you? Actually, I don't even know your name yet. I'm Ning Qingxue. I wanted to ask if you knew where Emo went. Why has he still not come back today? In Ning Qingxue's eyes, Emo and Su Wei were living together. Su Wei would definitely know where Emo was. Emo, I haven't seen him for 2 days. Isn't he with you? Su Wei said, intrigued. Meanwhile, she thought, your boyfriend disappeared. Why are you asking me? With me. Ning Qingxue was as intrigued as Su Wei. She noticed something different. Things didn't seem to be the way she thought them to be. Then she looked at Su Wei's expression, so she could only say, you are his girlfriend. Isn't he living with you? Hearing Ning Qingxue's words, Su Wei blushed and was a bit annoyed. But Ning Qingxue was so beautiful, and her temperament was obviously not that of a normal woman, so she couldn't really throw a fit. However, she replied coldly, since when was I his girlfriend? This is really weird. You are living with him in the same room every day, and you say I am his girlfriend. This is too out of this world. What? Emo doesn't stay with you at night? Ning Qingxue asked in surprise. As if discerning Ning Qingxue wasn't lying on purpose, Su Wei replied, I am only renting the same house with him. We don't know each other that well. Wasn't he living with you? Ning Qingxue already knew. She must have misunderstood Emo. However, if Emo wasn't living with him and didn't live with Su Wei, where would he be living? It should be the hotel. He had quite some money now. Oh, he should be living in the hotel. It's just that he ran off somewhere today. Ning Qingxue was a bit embarrassed thinking that she misunderstood Emo live in a hotel? Not possible. I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, and each morning he would be in the backyard. Su Wei stopped her words at that moment. If she continued, it would be making it clear that Ning Qingxue was living with Emo, and since she didn't want to admit it to herself, why bother saying it? Su Wei, who suddenly stopped talking, felt embarrassed and said, Perhaps he really is living in the hotel. I have some things to attend to, so I'm going in. Of course, Ning Qingxue knew what Su Wei was thinking and went hurriedly to Su Wei while she said awkwardly, Sorry, Su Wei, I really didn't stay with him. But how could he be in the yard at 5 or 6 a.m. each morning? Su Wei found this series of events funny. but she saw that Ning Qingxue didn't seem like she was lying and frowned her eyes, thinking that this was too absurd. It made people have chill thinking about it. Is Yemo? She didn't dare to keep thinking about it. As if suddenly remembering something, Su Wei suddenly said, "The landowner has installed a camera at the front and the back. The control center is a computer placed in the storage room. I'll show it to you." Ning Qingxue heard that there was a camera and hurriedly followed Su Wei into that storage room full of boxes, which was at the corner of the living room. Ning Qingxue had stayed here for so long and did not know that there was another storage room. There was a surveillance computer inside, but it was full of dust and the power was switched off. The two switched on the screen and saw the two surveillance windows. One was facing the front door and another was at the back. It seemed that the landowner was quite meticulous. They opened the recent surveillance recording. The camera facing the front door showed the Yemo went out early each morning, but it didn't show Yemo going out at night. However, when the two people switched the camera to the back, they immediately found out Yemo had been sitting under the tree for the whole night, other than occasionally sleeping under the rainproof tent on the stone floor for a few hours. Most of his time was spent laying on the tree. He had been sleeping on the tree? Ning Qingxue and Su Wei looked at each other in shock. Su Wei and Ning Qingxue both had the same thought. What happens during the rainy days? A week ago there was a pouring rain. They hurried to change the date to that rainy day, but what shocked them was Yemo was still sitting under the tree. However, the rain seemed to have formed a barrier around Yemo. The two couldn't see that clearly and thought there was a problem with the camera. However, an hour later, Yemo left the tree and slept on the stone floor. Su Wei was an emotional girl, and after seeing the Yemo didn't even have a place to live at night. She immediately felt some disgust towards Ning Qingxue. Her tears fell, thinking that Yemo was pitiful. Even if this girl was pretty, she couldn't just do that to Yemo. What a fox demon! Wiping her tears, Su Wei glanced at Ning Qingxue. She didn't want to stay with this woman anymore. She just turned and left the storage room without saying anything. When Su Wei walked out of the storage room, Ning Qingxue understood that Su Wei had some enmity towards her. She could feel and see it plainly. However, now she was still staring at Yemo, who slept on the stone floor. She suddenly felt some pain in her heart, but it wasn't sadness like Su Wei. He had that much money. Why didn't he go to the hotel? Why did he stay under the tree night after night? Even if he did sleep under the tree, he should come under the roof when it was raining. Plus, even if he wanted to live in the same room with me, I wouldn't have disagreed. I was the one coming to live in the same room as Yemo. Thinking about how Su Wei was crying, Ning Qingxue felt her heart was a bit hard. She just felt Yemo was too much of a cheapskate. Although she didn't feel good, she only thought of one sentence. Those who are hated have pitiful aspects. She didn't know Yemo thought of her this way too. She sighed and thought, was he so stingy because he was too poor before? Although she felt touched by Yemo moving out his room for her, she felt that it was more because she gave $500,000 to Yemo. The camera was switched on the previous night, and Yemo was still standing under the tree for half the night, and around 1 a.m., he had gone to sleep on the stone floor. But the following scene almost made Ning Qingxue scream. Song Shaowen sneakily jumped over the wall with 2 henchmen. Ning Qingxue suddenly remembered Li Mumei's phone call. Didn't Song Shaowen die already? Why was he here last night? Thinking about this, Ning Qingxue felt goosebumps on her head. But the following scenes made her completely understand the situation. Yemo, who was sleeping on the stone floor, just spoke a few words with Song Shaowen and them. Then Song Shao and his 2 henchmen took Yemo away. The scenes afterward returned to nothing. She couldn't hear the conversation between Yemo and Song Shaowen. Ning Qingxue had already understood. It seemed like Yemo and Song Shaowen reached some sort of agreement and just left like that. Normally, if Song Shaoan came here, how could he leave without abducting her? What happened? Song Shaoan actually found his way here. This really was insane. Ning Qingxue felt scared just thinking about it. If it wasn't for Yi Mo, what would have happened? She didn't dare to think. Song Shaoan's car fell off the cliff. Did anything happen to Yi Mo? Ning Qingxue could no longer hold her worry in as she picked up the phone to call Li Mumei. Mumei, you said Song Shaoan and 2 of his men died. Was there anyone else in the car? This was what Ning Qingxue wanted to know the most. Although Yi Mo took $500,000 from her, Ning Qingxue couldn't accept it if Yi Mo lost his life because of the money. Plus, these men came for her. Yi Mo was innocent. No, what's wrong? There were only the 3 of them in the car. This was verified. The Song family is in turmoil right now. Qingxue, don't think too much. I'll come stay with you tomorrow. Li Mumei comforted her. After hanging up, Ning Qingxue still didn't feel appeased. There was no way she could let anyone see the video recording here. Thinking about this, Ning Qingxue hurried and took her USB and copied the clips, while deleting it from the computer. Only then did she feel a little better. However, another thought hit her. What if the Song family knew that Song Shaoan came to Ninghai? If they were to investigate, this clip could still be recovered. Ning Qingxue was stuck, not knowing what to do. She was already certain that Song Shaoan's death should be related to Yi Mo. However, Song Shaoan's car fell into the cliff at Fongjin Highway. The Song family shouldn't be able to find out about this place. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.